All right, welcome everyone. Thank you all for coming this evening. Looks like we have an exciting agenda. Right? Everybody must be here to hear something about something. All right. But anyways, this is our village board meeting. Today is September, Tuesday the 14th. I'd like to start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'd like to start off the meeting with something truly valuable to the village of Rhinebeck, and that is in recognition of our village police officers. Tonight we have with us Officer Ken Landers and Officer Brian Reevy, who with many years of service, who are retiring from our village police. So I would like to have both Ken and Brian, along with Sergeant Dunn, please come forward. Wow. You know, when you have officers like this that have spent 30 years with the department, that have seen the village through so much and have done so much for the village, whether it's an event like Cinder Claus, which we're all familiar with, or just the vast experience that, Brian, you have to contribute to the police department, I cannot let it go without giving a heartfelt thank to both of them on behalf of the village of Rhinebeck, the village board, our police department. And with that, I'd like to give you a plaque in recognition of your service. We have a couple of mementos, but Ken, this one is for you. First one. It's a grateful appreciation and dedication of service and commitment to the Rhinebeck community. We wish you all the best in your retirement. Thank you very much. I always say these are the saddest and yet the happiest moments, right? The decision to retire, I don't know. I've not made that decision. I don't know if I ever will. My wife would have another opinion about that. But it's a very tough decision, especially when you're involved with so much with the community. So Brian, badge number 23, in grateful appreciation for your dedicated service and commitment to the Rhinebeck community. We wish you all the best in your retirement. Sergeant Dunn has something for you as well. I knew they were all here for you guys, by the way. We normally don't get a crowd.
So on behalf of the department, I'd just like to thank Ken and Brian for their service for many years, their dedication to the community, the village of Rhinebeck, all the hard work that they put in throughout the years. So this is an appreciation for you guys in the retired badge and the shield on the retired badge for the village board. Same thing. Shield 23. Congratulations on your retirement. All right, and
They're going to be hard to replace. This is not an easy job in today's environment to find dedication like what we have here that are willing to serve the village of Rhinebeck in this capacity. So, again, very much appreciated. Thank you so much. Thank you. We have pictures? Sorry, we need a photo op. You can take copies. And we will be posting this. Okay. Thanks again. Wow. What a way to start a meeting. I love it. Okay. Next, we have our county legislator, Brendan Kearney, who is here to give us a county update, please, Brendan. Make sure the mic is on, please. Speak loud and clear.
Good evening, everybody. Good?
Is the mic on? Okay. There.
Good evening, everybody. That was really nice, Gary, the retirement. So I'll just here to speak briefly. I guess I'll keep bending over. We had a legislative session last night. Unfortunately, a resolution that I had co-sponsored trying to direct more funding for mental health services in the Hudson Valley was not put on the agenda. But I continue to be an advocate for that, as we know, and sort of having our police officers here reminds us of the mental health and addiction crisis that's sort of growing and increasing severity in Dutchess County, particularly with COVID. So I continue to work on that. The other thing I really wanted to speak about tonight was simply to give you an update on the county and its COVID response. Unfortunately, the county is still not really acknowledging CDC guidance on masks, masks for employees, masks for meetings. So right now, what I had to tell you is that there is no response right now in this round of things, which I find very disturbing, and which one of my colleagues spoke quite eloquently about last night on the floor, requesting again that we protect each other by wearing masks and acknowledging what's going on. So I'll keep you updated on that. Those are the main things. Does anyone have any questions? Not a one. Okay. How about you all? Yeah.
Why isn't it that any elected official should be able to put something on your agenda? What is the actual rule? Why is that?
You're on to my favorite topic. No. The chairman of the legislature controls what reaches the agenda. So actually, from my caucus this year, we've had, I think, at least 20 at this point, resolutions that never made it for the public to see or for public consideration on the floor, because the chairman does control that flow of information. So actually there's kind of a real clog in Dutchess County. So you don't see a lot of what legislators are attempting to work on. That's why, give me a reason to remind everyone, if you'd like to receive monthly updates from my caucus and myself, I edit a newsletter called The Dutchess Voice, and that covers things like proposals that we've submitted that haven't been put forth for consideration. But I think it's a real problem and a real shame. I think that things should at least come to the floor for public acknowledgement and then for robust debate. And it's fine, then it gets voted down, yay or nay. But to not have things out there is wrong, in my opinion. That's a strong one. I feel very strongly about that. So please, DutchessVoice.com, subscribe.
Thank you, Brendan.
Thank you all.
Okay, we have a couple presentations this evening. The next on the agenda is a presentation on 6 Mulberry Street, known as the Father Brogan Center. So, David? So I just want to make an announcement first, that this is the first the village board has heard or seen this. So everything that you're seeing, we're seeing for the first time as well. We will be taking it under advisement. Tonight is not the night we are going to be taking public comment. We are here to listen, to hear, and then the board will take it under advisement, and hopefully future meetings will be scheduled to discuss planning, meetings, public forums, et cetera, to go along with this.
Great.
David.
Thank you.
Is there a general public comment?
I'm sorry, Don, I can't hear you.
Is there a general public comment?
Yes, I have it later on the agenda.
can everyone hear me? Okay? Yeah. Well, thank you. My name is David Ruff. I am part of a partnership that includes two others, Mesh Friedman, who's here tonight, and Gitu Ramani, who couldn't join us. The three of us are the managing partners of Duchess Shepherd. Again, I want to thank everyone for allowing us to present today. I appreciate it. We look forward really to hearing more feedback from everyone. We're eager to pursue this project with the community support is really what we want. So really the way forward. Just a little bit of history about where we are. Duchess Shepherd purchased the property from the Good Shepherd Church, the Church of the Good Shepherd, in April of this past year. And we have been working right around tax day, April 15th. We've been working diligently since then to envision a future for this project. In late May, on two dates, May 26th and May 27th, once in the morning and one in the late early evening, we held community meetings and invited the community at large to see principally this presentation. There have been some added slides since then, and that was really, other than some procedural meetings that we had with some administration to understand what our next step were, in other words, how do we get here, we've had no other contact with the community until now. We are Duchess Shepherd LLC. My company, Nava, is a affiliated party to Duchess Shepherd, and we are developers and architects, and have done well over, I would say, 500,000 square feet of architecture development throughout downstate and upstate. And so really the core values of our company are sort of fourfold. Certainly community engagement whenever we can, if it's not an entirely rural project. It really starts there for us. Then there's a component of sustainability. We're deeply dedicated to sustainable structures. Typically when we build new, we build passive house, sometimes certified, sometimes not, but it is an ideology we adhere to. Land stewardship, if that is appropriate, if it's not a sort of downstate project. And then the protection of good architecture is really important. We are developer architects. I'm a licensed architect in New York State, in Connecticut, and New Jersey. We care deeply about architecture and about the value of architecture in our communities. And we do what we can, whenever we can, to envision futures for good architecture. It's not to say every building should be safe. It's not that. So I thought I would give a little bit of history. And I should say that I've done my own research, but the best research I've had into the history of this site has come from this community. From a couple of individuals in particular who have really shared their memories, shared their understanding of the history of Rhinebeck, but in particular of the village, but in particular this site. What you're looking at here is an 1890 slide, a drawing, in fact, called the Burley Bird's Eye View. This is a drawing that sort of records the state of the village at that time. In red, I've outlined the site that we're talking about. It's a little bit different in terms of its geometry, but it sits there on East Market and Mulberry and South, bounded by those three streets. So you can see, I mean, if I were to zoom in, I'm not sure I can do that, I can. If you zoom in, you certainly can see from this 1890 that there is a building, a commercial or institutional building anchoring what appears to be the corner, the East Market and Mulberry corner. So in somewhere in 1930 or post 1930, the building that you see now was added to this structure. So it wasn't that this structure was taken down. Let me go to the next slide. That's the schoolhouse as it originally existed, or originally existed prior to 1931. After 1931, the building that you see now was added as an addition to the building, and it was built to house the school, to the expanding school. The wooden structure, which this building was grades 1 through 6 at the time, and the adjacent structure, the bulky schoolhouse as we know it now, less the red sort of cinder block annex, was a high school. So the story is, and this comes from a 2018 publication put out by Marist College, that somewhere in April in 1939 there was a fire. And this fire apparently occurred in a partition, and it was deemed or officially said to be an electrical fire. The building burned to the ground. That is the original building burned to the ground. The story goes that a Mr. Clarence Ridners and Mr. Carlton Sipperley happened to be walking by on Mulberry at the time in that Sunday evening in April. Noticed the blaze. Mr. Sipperley was a member of the fire brigade at the time. Entered the structure, turned off the furnace, turned off the electrical panels, and then shortly thereafter, Dr. Buckley, showed up, who was also a member of the fire brigade and also the president of the school board, and assisted in putting out the fire as well as reviving firemen who had succumbed to smoke. So that's the official story. There seems to be a little more to the story as you dig in, which that some of the memories of people who are around today and were members of their class tell us that that what they recall is that a father and son firebugs, or in today's parlance, arsonists, started the fire in the boys' laboratory. I had no way of confirming that, but that is part of the history, or at least the lore. After the fire destroyed the house, of course, the schoolhouse, the grades 1 through 2 moved to Methodist Hall. Grades 3 through 6 moved to the large building that no longer exists, that was behind the Subaru garage over on 9. And the grades 7 and 8 moved to Catholic Hall. Also, anecdotally, apparently the kids found a great fun. That this was a kind of adventure, and it was exciting times. My guess is the parents less fun, but it's an interesting and colorful part of the history. I don't really have any record. I haven't found any record, but it must have been soon after the fire, and I couldn't say 2, 3, 4, 10 years, that the annex, and again, the annex would be the red cinder block building that was attached to the east, to the north of the structure, was built. And the current high school opened and moved in there in 1962. In 1962, the high school moved to the new building, and that building was a middle school until the early 80s. Late 70s, although it seems like probably early 80s, at which point the Church of the Good Shepherd purchased the building with the intention, I understand, of opening a Catholic school, which never really happened, and the building has sat, I think, arguably underutilized to some extent since then. Certainly good moments for it, community moments, but underutilized for the size and scale of the building. To talk a little bit about the building. Again, this is the red annex that I was speaking about that was built after the fire at some point. Looking at the building as an architect, I do believe that, that an architect worked hard to build this building and design this building. There are some, wonderful features. There's soldier coursing, as you can see around the windows. There's a beautiful herringbone frieze that is beside the windows. There's header courses and bluestone lintels. There was certainly some effort and thought and time put into this building when it was originally constructed. The building, as I said in our previous community board meeting, is a steel structure building. It was built very much like the Empire State Building on a very much smaller scale. Steel rivets, columns, and masonry facing. So it's a robust building and well built. It needs some love, arguably, but well built. So I include here just a little bit of the state as it is now. That is a Google Earth view. Obviously, this is the building. These are tents that were put up whenever Google was flying over and took this picture. They're not permanent structures. This is the blacktop. The lot has a lot, obviously, designation in the city tax records and in the plat map. Its total acreage is 1.44 acres. It is a plus 20,000 square foot facility over 3 floors, not including the gym. And I think if I were to provide my analysis of it, it is grossly underutilized. The chain link fence, the blacktop parking are not really accretive to the charm that this village has. And so, to some extent, there's a real opportunity here for us all to re-envision what this could be for our community, right? So a bit of a before and a bit of after. I'll get more into this in some later slides, but the overview basically proposes a 5-lot subdivision. The building itself, less the annex, which we're proposing to remove. Again, it's cinder block. We don't believe it's particularly well conceived and in any kind of dialogue with the building itself. And then 4 compliant lots, 2 corner lots and 2 infill lots along Mulberry and East Market, and along South Street. That's the kind of overall plan. To start to talk about now, and we'll get into more of the architecture and the layout and the thinking behind it, the use. So nationally, on a county level, on a state level, we have a precipitously growing senior demographic. In general, that is an underserved demographic in terms of housing stock that is appropriate and suitable for the needs of that growing demographic. There is a policy term, it's actually not a policy term, it's more of a sociological term called aging in place. It has then been adopted in government as a policy driver. It really talks about the value of retaining that senior demographic in the communities that they spend 10, 20, 30 lifetimes in. And that the efforts made architecturally, civically, from an urban planning perspective, to retain that elder community shows great benefits, not only, of course, to the senior demographic itself, but up and down the health and vibrancy of the community. So children benefit, families benefit, young adults benefit, businesses benefit. It is a way to knit and hold together a community and provide up and down the diverse age groups real sustainable health and vibrancy in the community. So that demographic, of course, has unique needs, right? So, I've said this before, a typical, Victorian home with very small bathrooms and lots of stairs is really not a suitable way to retain a senior demographic who really can't navigate that either without making a substantial investment in a home or more than likely being relocated, much, again, to the loss of a community at large. So the use group the use that we're proposing for the building is an adult residential living building of multifamily units. And I'll get more into that use and the specifics behind it in a couple of later slides. The other lots that we have created, again, on the north and on the south, are single-family homes they would be compliant in every way with the current village code, whether from septic to square footage to architectural appropriateness to all the elements that are required for any single-family home structure. I spent some time reading the 1993 master plan, which is the most recent master plan we have. And there are a number of very interesting comments, and if you indulge me, I'm going to read not all of this that's on this page, but I'm going to read some of it. So demographics and findings that is part of the title from the 93 master plan, you'll find it on pages 39 and 40. Quote, the other increasing age group is the elderly, reflecting the national trend toward longer lifespans. This factor will become increasingly critical as the bulge, now in the middle of the population chart, moves toward older age classifications. The text continues on page 44. The most significant finding from the analysis of population characteristics is the number of people at retirement age in the village. I remind you, this is 1993. The 1990, I'm going to skip now down, you all can read it. Well, I'll skip a little later in that paragraph. With good pedestrian access to shopping, a community-scale hospital, and other essential services, the village is an entirely appropriate location for retirement. The village should reconsider all its current housing options and community facilities in relation to the expected overall population growth and, more specifically, services and activities suitable for seniors. Finally, also from the 93 master plan, under the summary and recommendations, historic preservation 2.4 says the village should encourage historically sensitive rehabilitation of historic properties that are being restored or adapted to new uses. And then in the population economic profile, the village should plan for the needs of a large and growing elderly population in its recreational activities, emergency services, housing, public transportation options, and site plan designs. With the goal of to provide a broad range of housing options for all present and future village residents, including young people, families with children, the elderly, and households who earn less than a median income. The village should encourage local zoning strategies, private initiatives, and government programs that promote development of housing appropriate in size, location, accessibility, and cost for many different types of households. So, that was a bit wordy, but I would say, from our perspective and from our community perspective, that the location of the current Bulkley Schoolhouse, its proximity to the village business district, its suitability as an adaptive, architecturally adaptive reused building for multifamily and its dovetailing with the goals and initiatives that were set forth in the 1993 master plan make it a very appropriate and unique opportunity for us to seize. So, the project as it stands today. Mind you, this has been ideated over 6 months. I'm sure there's more ideas and thoughts, and we look forward to hearing from people. But this is where we have what we have envisioned so far. We're looking more or less west, sort of a hummingbird on the bell tower of the church. I don't know if the church has a bell tower, but and looking at the building, we have removed the annex. We have added windows. This would be the north-facing side of the building. We have envisioned a lime wash on the building, which is well, actually it's an ancient way of treating masonry, but it also is a way to provide contrast to bring out some of the architectural merit that we discussed before, that herringbone pattern, the soldier coursing around the windows, things of that nature. Window boxes, obviously, landscaping. What you're seeing here on the north side of the building is the ADA ramp. We are proposing that the building, not proposing, it would be a requirement for what's called universal code. Universal code is what allows all people of all ages to use an apartment without discrimination. We would have an elevator in this building that would serve all 3 floors of the building for anyone who would potentially, excuse me, be in a wheelchair. This is more of a bird's eye view looking, I guess you could call it south. So now you're seeing more of the streetscape that we're creating. The four homes, and again, these homes are, this isn't necessarily the home that we're proposing, right? It would have to go through a whole series of analysis and presentation. But the idea of a Victorian-style home, four Victorian-style homes that continue the streetscape and the charm of the village with the building nestled in. Parking that was here on the blacktop has been moved. The parking access is down 3/4 of the way down Mulberry with parking in the rear. Parking has been designed to provide 2-for-1 parking for the number of units, plus ADA compliant ambulettes and ADA compliant parking spaces as needed. Here we have a view looking from South Street again, obviously elevated, looking towards the north. The two buildings, the two homes, one on South and Mulberry, and then the one a little further to the north on Mulberry, and then you're seeing, this would be the driveway for this house, and then you're seeing the building in the background. Some sort of evening shots to give a sense of what the streetscape might look like as one walked down in the evening to invigorate the street and the landscape and the streetscape. This would be another evening shot. This is looking up Mulberry towards this market. I'm not sure that many lights would be on in the building at one time, but it does give a sense of the building. I apologize, but adaptive reuse and the strategies of adaptive reuse. Adaptive reuse is a urban planning and term that talks about, really the definition is more or less how to repurpose existing structures to become viable and productive buildings in a contemporary context. So really that's exactly what we're talking about here. There have been, what we are proposing is the current use groups that are defined under the code. This building, this lot sits in the residential district, squarely in the residential district, and the use groups that are under the residential district include single-family home, they include short-term rental, they include municipal facility or municipal building, passive recreation. They do not include adult living. And so the question is, how do we, if we decide and feel that this is an appropriate use, which I believe it is, how do we find a path forward to allow this building to be permitted as such? There are, in our neighboring towns, Millbrook and Millerton, to say just a few. In Millbrook, they've taken the strategy with the Thorn building, I'm sure many of you know, to create what is called a Thorn building special district. It's an overlay district for which then they permitted specific uses for that building in order for it to be adaptively reused and reknitted into the community. Millerton has identified also some buildings that are suitable for adaptive reuse. They've taken a different approach. They are not suggesting an overlay district, rather an adaptive reuse code in their actual code, which would then give their village board and planning zoning the opportunity to allocate or define uses for those buildings. Speaking among ourselves and thinking about what would be the best for the community, the overlay district really seems the most restrictive in that should someone come 50, 60, 70, 80 years from now, that overlay district would only apply to this lot, and it would revert back to its original uses, and so there would be no possibility for a kind of retooling of that. I don't know, reading the Millerton Adaptive Reuse Code, it seemed a little bit more flexible. So what we have done is propose the Berkeley-Shepherd Overlay District. I realize, of course, this is early, that you all need a lot of time to consider this, but I wanted to think it through and put something in front of you. So this district would really comprise only of the lot to be determined, which it doesn't have a lot designation yet, because we haven't gone through the lot subdivision and the secret process and all of that, but it would include that lot and that lot only. So in addition to the historic district overlay, the special sensitivity overlay, the land conservation overlay, we would now have the Berkeley-Shepherd overlay. Again, name to be determined if we get there. So, the idea here being that, I'll read a couple of things, the legislative intent here, right, would be to amend the Village of Rhinebeck zoning law consistent with 121, which is the guiding arrow of the zoning law and the comprehensive plan of 1993 Village of Rhinebeck master plan. This amendment would will establish certain allowed uses of land and improvements in a new overlay zoning district to be known as the Berkeley-Shepherd overlay, which will allow the use of the land and adaptive reuse of a former educational structure on the parcel of land designated by a future determined tax parcel number. This local law shall also amend the zoning map, et cetera, et cetera. So the purpose, the intent is more or less the same. The purpose of this law is to create a framework that integrates the land and the building into the Berkeley-Shepherd overlay, into the community, and allows these to be used as an adult living facility for the general benefit of the Village of Rhinebeck. The proper use of this property will provide critical housing options for the senior demographic, this is what I was speaking about earlier, enhance the overall quality of life in Rhinebeck, and assist in the business community in Rhinebeck. Clearly, whatever future this project has, certainly in this form, it will increase the catchment zone for the local businesses, as well as obviously the village tax base, which is a good thing. It's worth just reading a couple of definitions about this use, and then I will stop. I promise. Just so that people understand what adult living is. Adult living, because the state defines adult. There's a state code that deals with senior living, and there are many different stratifications under that. Some are assisted. You all are familiar with Brookmead. That is a highly assisted living facility that meets a different standard. What we are proposing as an adult living community is a planned residential development with or without mixed uses, consisting of a building or group of buildings. Building for us, it's a building. This is just a definition, but obviously it's a building. These buildings may contain multifamily dwelling units, two-family duplex dwelling units, single-family cottages, or a mixture of these dwelling unit types, offering, this is critical, universal design features and adaptability for all physical abilities. Accessory retail uses may be located on the first floor. That's not what we're proposing, but it is part of the kind of general definition. The adult living community can be designed as an independent living facility and/or congregate housing, but shall not include residential healthcare facilities. That would be more like Brookmead, yeah. Assisted living facilities, again, more like Brookmead, or continuing care retirement facilities, which are separately regulated by New York State. So under that, there is a definition for independent living facility, and that's a building, a portion of a building, or a group of buildings containing dwelling units with full kitchens, bathrooms, and specially designed for use and occupancy by seniors. Again, that really is referring to the universal design clause. In this case, the senior is defined as anyone over of 55 years or more. And then I've already talked about universal design. So the permitted uses that we would be looking for are a multifamily, residential, independent living, adult care facility for individuals 55 or older. Their spouses don't need to be 55 or older, they can be older or younger. It would allow certain other additional in live-ins. One would be a healthcare provider, the other would be a child or grandchild that is in direct relation that either has a disability or has no other option. And then because we are proposing leaving about 14% of the building for common space, so most of you have been in the building, the gym section that is further to the west, to the north, what's the west? Sorry, got a little screwed around there. A good portion of that would be left for what's called permitted accessory uses. Keep in mind, permitted accessory uses are for the residents of the building only. They are not a public use. So those would include things like therapy rooms, yoga studios, game rooms, many things that, and I have a list here, happy to share that with the community. It probably could go on forever, but the idea is to capture uses that would be useful for that demographic and make their living and better, really, in every way. Well, thank you. I hope I haven't bored you with tears, but look, we care a lot about this project. We care a lot about our community. I would mention only that I'm sure that adopting a kind of code like this would require some legal, a fair amount of it. I know that Duchess Shepherd would certainly work with the town and their legal to make sure that it's done properly and we cover it with reasonable expenses. We really look forward to your feedback and thank you for your time. So this is Maish, my partner.
I just wanted to say something. First of all, thank you, like David said, everyone for coming. Part of the inspiration for this project, for me anyways, is my mother, who just walked out, just left. She just doesn't have a lot of patience, but she's a wonderful mom. But part of the inspiration for me in doing this and putting this project together with David, who did a fabulous job with the presentation, by the way, is my mother is in her late 70s. She wants to live independently. She wants to do things on her own, but she has some mobility issues. She's right now living in the village on the second floor of a building, and she has great difficulty going up and down the stairs. So a lot of times I have to run over, or somebody has to run over and help her come down, walk down the stairs, or go up the stairs. And I really, living in the village for the last 10 or 15 years, whatever it's been, I really feel there's a very strong need for this type of housing in the village. Very, very, very strong. It's becoming more and more difficult to find good rental space, and specifically rental space that accommodates an older demographic, so to speak. So I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you.
Someone asked how many units you were proposing for the 55 and older.
Sure. We are proposing, about 12 units.
And how big is that old brick vintage piece, excluding the gymnasium? How many square footage?
About 16,000.
16,000?
We
Really?
would have to do a takeoff.
Without the cinder?
So keep in mind, it may be more like 15. Keep in mind that the lower level, which there's light wells to actually fantastic light gets in there, is it's really a 3-level structure. Most of you probably think of it as being 2-story.
Yeah, I do.
Right, 2-story with a gym. And that's not actually the case. There's almost a 10.5-foot ceilings with 7-foot high windows on that level, bringing streaming light in from the east.
Yeah.
So that's why it's a bit deceptive from a square footage. I do want to also finally say that my wife, Geetu Ramani, is our other partner, and is also my wife. We live in Stamfordville, in Corners. We vote up here, and we are part of this community, and we want to see a future for this, and we'll follow it through for a long time. We're very excited. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Thanks, Mesh. Appreciate you coming this evening.
Thank you.
John, as I mentioned, we're not taking questions tonight, so
has not been submitted to the village.
Can we make an arrangement to have that submitted to the village so that it can be publicly accessible?
That's the reason why not, just present it here,
would
public
have to be
knowledge.
at this
yes.
point.
Right, yeah, I mean, we've gotten it, so it's now public information. So if you wouldn't mind just sending it to us electronically, that would be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, John. Okay, thank you all, and we're going to move on. We have another presentation this evening from our treasurer and CFO, Karen Mclaughlin. Oh, don't leave now. This is really good
This is the
stuff.
first part, it's super fun.
Clarification comments are at the end of this meeting, correct?
Diane, I'm sorry, what did you say?
Winter comment.
I have the air conditioning on, so it's hard to hear.
Comments are at the end of this meeting. You said there would allowed to be comments.
Yeah, I don't have them
In
on
the
my
middle
agenda, but
somewhere?
we put it right after this discussion for public comment, okay? I'm sorry, if we turn the air conditioning off, it'll be 90 in here before you know it. So,
Okay, I guess just the diehards are left now. But it's amazing the difference a year makes. Last year, we were all adjusting to the new normal, or business unusual, quarantining and working from home, or lining up to purchase items we never thought we would be important during a pandemic. Today, it feels like we're heading closer to a sense of normalcy, at least for now. Due to the explosion in the housing market and the increased receivables from mortgage tax, in direct contrast to the cost of building materials, supplies, and equipment, it is difficult to project future revenue and expenses. This will be a challenge for all municipalities going into fiscal year 22-23. Can you go to the next? Sure. Okay, so when it comes up, this chart that's going to be coming up here shortly breaks down revenue, showing the percentage in each category.
broke. We lost it.
Okay, I'll go on while that's loading, so.
Just, you pause a second. Let her-
Okay.
It's not up there, Martina.
No, I know.
I just want to reload it.
Do you want to sit over here? Is that going to help? You're out in the open?
I think it has a short cord too. It does.
It was there and then it lost it again. There it is.
The computer itself is just a little slow. Seems to be frozen. The computer itself.
we go.
Okay, this chart breaks down revenue showing the percentages in each category. This is particularly important to monitor. By tracking our sources of revenue, the board has the tools to make informed decisions down the road. Our goal is to always keep property taxes down and rely on other sources of revenue. We have been fortunate this past fiscal year to have had an increase in sales tax and mortgage tax attributed to keeping the village vibrant via outdoor dining and an increase in home values. The fire department expanded their coverage in the town of Rhinebeck, increasing the fire contract by $31,620. There have also been shortfalls in fees, fine, and court activity. Expenses are broken down by department. Each department head is asked to monitor their budget and notify the board of any unforeseen purchases and/or any upcoming capital projects. COVID has increased the unforeseen expenses for the fire department and the police departments with purchases of PPE, increased police services, and as well as police reform going on during this same time. COVID-related expenses so far amount to $28,247, for which we applied to FEMA for reimbursement. As we were unsure about the financial effects of COVID, the departments were conscientious of their budgets and spending. The police expenses were higher than normal. Actually, if you want to go to the next slide, it's going to show a comparison to the budget. There. The police department expenses were higher than normal due to additional hours for the governor's executive order 203 and the purchase of a Lexapro program to update policies and procedures and provide them online. This is a comparison chart. The green line shows the budget, the annual budget, and then the blue line shows broken down by department where they came in at the end of the fiscal year. None of the departments exceeded their budgets, and I thank them for their commitment. It really does take a team effort from the village board to the department heads to all of us here in the village. To recap the accomplishments this year, despite the increased costs of materials, supplies, and equipment, a major water line upgrade was completed with additional street improvements to Livingston, Chestnut, Platte, Mulberry, and parts of Route 9. A grant from New York State EFC in the amount of $2,228,000 was received, and the village's short-term borrowing totaled $3,358,000. An additional bond anticipation note was taken out for $450,000 for the general fund highway portion. In January 2021, this was converted to long-term debt in both the water and the general funds, and both bonds matured, allowing the planned payment for these new annual obligations. Okay, so in order to budget and to plan, keeping an eye on the progression of long-term debt and knowing maturity dates is imperative to planning future projects and equipment. We usually try and go out at least 10 years or sometimes the life of the project, and this just gives us a good gauge on planning for the future. This next chart shows the account balances as a percentage of the whole. We do maintain a good percentage in investments and securities, which is liquid and can be obtained the same day if need be. The capital accounts are separated off to the side and broken out by the amount in each one of those departments. While the Fed has lowered its target rate, a local government investment pool remains a competitive option. We use New York Class, New York Cooperative Liquid Asset Security System, and carry balances in the general, the water, and the sewer funds. So this next chart, we'll start with our current net position for revenue and expenses. In the general fund, we finished the fiscal year with a net gain of $288,684. In the water fund, $13,130. And in the sewer fund, $102,066. And it seems like it's high in the sewer fund, however, we do have a large $127,000 filter building project going on at this time. So this chart shows the budget, which is the bottom line, the expenditures, and then the revenue. By having a net gain in all funds this current year, it increases the fund balance by that amount and keeping a healthy fund balance in all of our funds. Before we dive into the fund balance analysis, I'd like to read a portion of the fund balance policy. Minimum unassigned fund balance. It is the goal of the village to achieve and maintain an unassigned fund balance in the general fund at the fiscal year end, ranging from 15% to 25% of the subsequent budgeted expenditures. This minimum fund balance is to protect against cash flow shortfalls related to timing of projected revenue receipts and to maintain a budget stabilization commitment. Replenishing deficiencies. When the fund balance falls below this minimum 15% range, the village will replenish shortages, deficiencies. The village will reduce recurring expenditures or will increase revenues, pursue other funding sources, or some combination of the two. Surplus unassigned fund balance. Should the unassigned fund balance of the general fund exceed the maximum 25% range, the village will consider such fund balance as surplus for a one-time expenditure that are non-recurring in nature and which will not require additional future expense outlays for maintenance, additional staffing, or other recurring expenditures. So I'll go through the general fund, but the water and the sewer fund are calculated the same way. So we take the fund balance as of the end of fiscal year 1920. We less the assigned fund balance and less 25% of the investments in securities, just noting that we will try and keep that 25%, that we will not use it in our fund balance to make sure that we have a healthy fund balance. We're going to add our year-to-date revenue. We're going to deduct the year-to-date expenditures. So looking at the general fund, at the fund balance at the end of 5/31/21 is $840,813. And the calculation is the same in the water fund. The fund balance at the end of 5/31/21 is $533,483. And the sewer fund has a fund balance of $805,668. The fund balance policy pertains to the general fund only, as the water and sewer funds are self-sustaining with user fees and not by taxpayer dollars. It is important to note that fund balance is a net position and considers cash, receivables, payables, interfund transfers, pending grants, and accruals. Maintaining a responsible fund balance is an ongoing challenge. As per the village fund balance policy, the unassigned fund balance range, the 15%, is $387,843. And the high end of it, the 25%, is $646,405. The fund balance is $840,813. This exceeds the maximum, leaving a fund balance surplus of $194,408. I think it was around 68,000 last year, but we did not, the board did not decide to use it or spend it for anything. So this is a valuable tool for you, the board, to know that you have this when you're making your decisions for the future. So you can see, can we just go back to that chart? You can see in this chart a decrease in the general fund balance as completion of earlier projects in prior years, the last 2 years, has reduced the fund balance. The water and sewer funds have a healthy fund balance, and this is good because unforeseen repairs and replacements to these facilities, distribution and collection systems can be very costly. Water fund balance has decreased due to projects that we have completed as well. The challenges of 2020-2021 are not all behind us. Interest rate or lack thereof continue to be one of those challenges that is still with us. Our focus here in the village is ensuring transparency for the money spent and influencing things that we can control. We have maintained an adequate fund balance. We continue to monitor expenses and budget responsibly, and we are always looking for safe, viable sources of revenue that in turn stabilizes the village tax rate. Whether you are a board member, resident, business owner, community member, or if you're just interested, please contact me if you have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen.
Yeah, thank you, Karen.
Thank you.
I would just like to thank Karen for her diligence that she puts in. For 5 years in a row now, we've presented a year-end statement of where we sit in the village so that everybody is aware. We do publish this. This will be published to our media. If you want a copy, you can email the village clerk and we can send you a copy, but we will be sending this out to anybody who's signed up to get email, social media, or whatever it goes out on. It will also be on our website for those received. So I also, I would like to thank the board. As Karen said, this is not easy, but it's one thing, damn it, we got to get it right, right? Because if we get anything wrong, this is what we don't want to do. We do not want to mess up with our fiscal accounting. So I thank Karen, I thank the trustees, and I also want to thank all of our department heads at the water, wastewater, highway, and all those who contribute to putting expenses into all of those things that we monitor very closely. I don't know if you all realize that after each one of these meetings, they work very hard to get everything ready for us to review and sign off and approve expenses. And it takes all of us to sign off and review and approve that. And so that is done every month on every expenditure coming through the village. So again, my thanks to all. My thanks to you, our citizens and residents of the village of Rhinebeck, for helping us make these decisions as we move forward throughout the year. Okay. We had public comment, and it kind of dropped off the agenda, but we are going to insert public comment on here, so at this time, we will take public comment. If you want to make a public comment, I'll acknowledge you. You come up to the microphone, identify yourself, and please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. Thank you.
Even if I didn't have a public comment, it's appreciated to take the mask off. My name is Marie Trombini, and I live on Prospect Street here in the village. I'm here tonight to ask for clarification as to the legal status of Prospect Street. I'm not exactly sure of the time frame, but it was sometime around late 2019 that a Central Hudson employee was on Prospect Street checking lines. I asked him if he was able to tell if 2 poles that are at the back end of Prospect Street, which is a dead-end street, were privately owned or Central Hudson owned. He checked the faceplates on the 2 poles and said that they were owned by Central Hudson. One of these poles has a street lamp on it, and I bring this up as I understand that the village is purchasing streetlights from Central Hudson in the near future. On that same day, a neighbor told me that when the highway department snowplow came through in the morning, they stopped plowing near her driveway. She said she called to see why they did not plow the entire length of the street and was told that the legality of Prospect Street has long been a confusing issue. Before that one instance, and ever since, to the best of my knowledge, the highway department plows the entire length of the street. Beginning around July of 2020, I spoke with John Fenton, who was at that time the zoning officer, to see if I could get clarification on the legal status of Prospect Street. 2 residents of the Village Green apartment complex told me that Ms. Rosenbaum of Prospect Street asked them not to walk on her panhandle driveway, not to use it as a shortcut to the village. Ms. Rosenbaum told me herself that she had sent a letter to the manager of the apartment complex advising that the street was her private property and asking that residents of the apartment complex not use it as a shortcut. I received a December 7, 2020 email note from John Fenton, on which Ryan Dowden was copied, stating that Prospect Street is a village road and can be used by the public. It further stated that this was being noted and recorded. In April of 2021, I placed yard brush alongside Prospect Street for highway department pickup. I waited several weeks for the pickup. When it appeared that the highway department was not going to pick up the brush, I stopped by the village hall on May 11th. Because of the COVID situation, there was a sign on the door that the building was closed except by appointment, and there was a number on the sign to call. I called that number, and a woman answered, identifying herself as Martina McClinton. I asked if I could schedule brush pickup on Prospect Street. She asked me if that was in the village or the town. I told her it was the village. She said they didn't schedule individual brush pickup as such. Then she asked me to hold on. When she returned to the phone, she said that Prospect Street was under litigation to determine if the entire length of the street was public or only a portion of it. She then asked me where I lived, and I told her I was the second house on the right, and the pile of brush was across the street from Brett Lopez's house, which is the first house on the left. She said she would see what she could do. The next morning, the brush was picked up. On June 1 of 2021, a street cleaner came down Prospect Street and cleaned the entire length of the street.
Yeah, this is, are you close to end? Because I asked to keep all presentations to 3 minutes or less.
Yep, I got about 3 paragraphs left.
Well, can you summarize? Because you're beyond our 3 minutes.
Okay.
Please.
The mayor's office told me that the issue has been resolved. I'm asking for clarification because between the email that I got from John Fenton, the village zoning map does not show the entire length of Prospect Street as a public street, which is a contradiction. And I would also like to know about using public tax dollars to maintain a private panhandle driveway, as New York constitutional law states in part that the state won't give aid to any individual, and this might be a violation of the village maintaining a private panhandle. I also have a listing of the New York State Department of Transportation local roads that shows the entire length has been listed for many years. And the village of Rhinebeck schedules parking prohibited at all times, lists Prospect Street from West Chestnut to the dead end. I have a 1985 trustee meeting where it stated that Prospect Street would be oil and stoned as part of the regular village budget. I also have an April 1976 trustees meeting minutes that said the water department would be putting in 300 feet of line and a hydrant and service hookups. So to me, it seems that since 1976 at least, the village has considered that to be a public street, and that's what I'd like to know. Is it public, is it private? What about the street I live on?
So I will respond here quickly, that as you're aware, this was taken on recently under legal advisement, and supposedly the legal partners have all agreed, are legal for the village of Rhinebeck, and I'll read it to it. Regarding this issue, last year, this is our legal, McCabe and Mack, was presented with sufficient evidence that the end of Prospect Street is in fact a private road. Based on the deeds for all properties at the end of road, each parcel benefits from an easement of access to utilize what is owned in fee by Trombini, right? The records from DOT relating to the length of Village Street indicate that the village portion of that road ends at the driveway for Trombini, okay? Accordingly, I had to agree that the village does not own the road and therefore agreed that the village would not enter upon that road area and that it was the responsibility of Trombini to maintain and plow that driveway. This was from a year ago from our legal McCabe and Mack.
So why did your street cleaner come through and clean the street?
Our street cleaner is contracted, and apparently he wasn't told. So we can apologize for that, but our street cleaner is not to clean that street.
And today, the water department came and marked off all the water lines on that section?
We still do that we still do that everywhere. We do that in the
Yeah.
town. We do that in Rhinecliff. It's part of our obligation.
Okay. So this winter, you will not be plowing that street?
We will not from the end of our ownership on Prospect Street. We still own part of Prospect Street,
Yes, the
right,
front part.
to your driveway. But from there on, it's private.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
I hope that's clear, right?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
very good, thank you. Victor? Again, I'm going to remind people, please keep your comments to 3 minutes or less.
Hey, I'm Victor Britton. I live on South Street, across from the Bulkley Building. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight. I didn't know that your presentation would be so detailed. I appreciate all the hard work that you do as board members. I really think that there's perhaps an intention to do things to save the building or because they're virtuous. I just want, this does boil down to a for-profit rental, at least the Bulkley building. So, I can move in to that, and it's going to be market priced. I think so. So I just want to make sure that that's understood. It's not going to be subsidized. It's going to be, and we know how the market's been in Rhinebeck. I just want that to be out there.
Well, just to be clear, right now it's nothing. So right now it's not allowed to be what they're proposing.
Right.
Our zoning laws don't allow for it, and so what they're asking for is something, but right now, it's nothing. And what we could potentially give them could be very different than what they're asking for. So we're,
That's good.
yeah, so I mean.
I just feel like it needs to be said, because that
Yeah.
can get highlighted, because it's, I want to, I'd like to see the property be developed to help people.
Right.
And this sounds good, but it's going to be a 12-unit, or it's nothing yet, but theoretically, it's a 12-unit rental building that's going to be market priced.
Well, if I can just comment, I'm sorry.
Just a quick little spark notes. I know I don't have much time. In February 2020, another developer approached the planning board about this and was not provided too many options. In May 2020, a broker representing the seller of this property was looking for options so that they could sell the property. In July 2020, one of the planning board members provided a suggested site plan to the prospective buyers that looks very much like the proposal that isn't happening yet. In August, there appears that there was a meeting with some of the planning board and the prospective buyers at that time. In August, Father Crawford applied for a demolition permit, which was denied based on the fact that the building was considered contributing, which doesn't appear to be the case. In fact, a letter was sent to the village historian asking about that, and the village historian cited that the building is not considered historic and has not contributed. In fact, the second ugliest building in the village was what the village historian had said. And so I just want there to be perspective on this, so that we don't rush into, you guys work hard, you're trying to do the right thing for the village, and I appreciate that, a lot of dedication, but we need to make sure we're looking at the big picture and not rushing, thinking that we're doing something virtuous, when it might not be. Thank you.
Thanks, Victor.
I can assure you, nobody's rushing into anything.
I can't, the hand, Diane, wait a second, the hand behind you was up before, I can't see you. Oh, Susanna? Again, I'll remind, comments 3 minutes or less.
Oh, I'm short. Susanna Renzi, Manor Road. The green lines no longer seem to be on Manor Road. Is there still planning to patch all the potholes at the end of my road?
We had hired a contractor who we're about to fire.
Okay, thank you. Because they're getting worse
Yeah.
and the green painted lines are no longer visible.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure we were still on your radar.
We have a map. The
Okay.
lines were just for us to go around and make a map.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I said the lines for us to go around and make the map, and we have been we've communicated with the contractor over the summer, and he has stopped communicating with us. So we're gonna move on.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
The second thing that's come to my attention about the Little Free Library, and I'm not sure if that's, Village is involved with that at all. I know, Vanessa, you might have some interaction with it, that it was supposed to go in the CVS parking lot, but there seems to be a problem with that. I was talking to someone about it, and I was wondering if the municipal lot, the little place where the Rhinebeck information is and the benches are, would that be an appropriate place to place the Little Free Library?
So, do you mind if I answer?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so we are going to be entering into discussions with CVS and the land, it was CVS on allowable uses for the pocket park. That is ongoing as a result of the request from the library. So that is unresolved. I did get a request from the library if there are other alternative places, and I suggested the same location that you just mentioned as a possibility to them. But we are waiting, they are waiting, and so still TBD. They have one right now, small library box that they want to put up. We're looking for a home, TBD.
Okay, I just
How's
wanted
that?
to, that's fine, I just made this suggestion to the person and thought I'd bring it to the board as
Yep.
well. Okay, thank you.
Diane, do you still want to come up? I'm sorry, Diane, Martha, you're next. Martha, you're next.
Hi, I'm Diane Britton. I live at 34 South Street with Victor. I am just appealing to the board to please have an open, transparent process where we look at doing anything with this building. It's really important that public get time to comment, that we do this thoughtfully, because this will be the first overlay of probably many requests that you'll see in the future from other developers who are hoping to come in and develop properties that are outside of a village code that's worked pretty well for us for a number of years. And just to kind of visualize what this would look like with 12 units. So that's 12 units, so 24 parking spaces. Add a few parking spaces for guests. Add a few more parking spaces for people who will be coming in to do therapy. Walk across the street, look at 30 parking spaces and what that looks like, and visualize that on South Street in the middle of a historic district. That's all.
Thank you, Diane.
Gary, can I say something?
Sure, your board can speak.
Okay, oh, great, awesome. So just to be clear, I'm Lydia Slavy, I'm the liaison to the Building, Planning and Zoning. I'm the person on the board whose headache this is gonna be. Delightful headache, but still. So I wanna reassure everyone in this room and everyone watching on TV that we will have multiple opportunities for the public to engage with this conversation. You are right, this is going to be the first overlay district that we are even considering in quite some time. It may open the door, it may not, who knows, but whether it does or doesn't, it's still a conversation about our zoning laws. And as we all know, conversations about zoning laws hit really close to home because it's literally our homes. And so I would just want to reassure you, and I know you don't know me very well, I'm still pretty new, but this will be a wildly transparent and public process. That's all I can say. We haven't, literally this is the first time, so give us a minute and I'm gonna ask for your trust, and I know that that's a lot to ask for with government these days, but I'm just gonna ask for your trust on this one, that nobody's going to be doing anything with the zoning laws or overlay districts or any of it without a great deal of public opportunity to speak and to give us their thoughts, and we need to also consider it. And so this is very much the first step of what I foresee a long process.
Martha?
I see that the marijuana resolution is on the agenda, and I have a comment on that. Could I ask, is there going to be a vote on that this evening?
And we haven't had the discussion yet, Martha, so.
I would like, if it's possible, to make a comment on behalf of Donna Warner, who had to leave. Is that doable? Otherwise, I'll do it.
That doesn't mean you get 6 minutes, you still get 3.
Okay. My name is Martha Gershon. I live in the village, and I'm speaking on behalf of Donna Warner, who also lives in the village. She would like to comment on the question of opting in or opting out of marijuana dispensaries or lounges in the village. She has 2 comments. First, it's unfortunate that the question put to the public in a recent survey was a yes or no to dispensary or lounge. The question before us and you elected officials is not that. The question is to opt in a decision that would be permanent, or to opt out of making a decision right now, which the opt-out, as I'm sure you know, could be changed. That decision could be reversed at any time in the future. Opting out simply defers the decision to a later time when the village could opt in if it wants to, or continue to opt out on whether to have a dispensary or lounges in the village. The advantage of opting out now is significant. The state rules have not yet been published, and the village would be able to learn from what happens in other communities that are early adopters on issues, and also learn from the state situation on issues such as traffic, congestion, police problems, and possible revenues, which is totally unknown at this point, depending on what the state regulations are. The village would not have to guess about potential benefits or negatives, and not permanently opt in to what is essentially an uncertain and unknowable situation. Ms. Warner's second concern is the survey, which we understand was to give the board a, quote, sense of direction. Aside from posing from what she believes to be the wrong question, the survey had 2 significant flaws. It was intended for village residents and not the general population of the state, the county, the United States, the world. And yet anyone from anywhere could respond to the survey. Residents, town residents, industry reps, Hyde Park, Clinton residents, youth under 18, visitors from California, or wherever. Second, anyone from anywhere could vote as many times as they wish. I myself, Ms. Warner, although I did the same thing, I have to confess, voted twice. The second time to verify that multiple votes were indeed possible. There's no identifying information, nothing.
All right, Martha,
So,
we're at 3 minutes.
So what you can make of the results is nothing. It's a totally unreliable and biased data. And if you have 700 responses, it could be from 70 people or 70, 700 or 70.
Thank you, Martha.
It doesn't represent the village, and you should ignore it.
Thank you, Martha.
Thank you.
Eleanor?
I don't know if I submitted my comments via email on time, so I just want to quickly bring up something, and I've already alluded to these two issues in the past. One is the traffic flow on Route 9, the stretch from Village Green up past the hospital, just the car, pedestrian, and bicycle traffic. It's impossible to turn in and out. Even like tonight, I couldn't turn out of Village Green, and there's nothing going on at the fairgrounds. It wasn't, it wasn't anything particular, but the traffic is just so heavy in Rhinebeck now, and it's so dangerous. You can't cross the street with a bicycle. I can still kind of almost trot across the street, but when I get a little bit older, I don't think I'll have enough time to dash between the cars. So that's one thing I would like to, again, emphasize, if we could start the process now, because I'm sure it'll take a while to get the state involved in making this study to determine, what could be done there to improve traffic flow. But the other thing is, and that does tie into what came up tonight, is middle and low-income housing. I do not consider myself a low-income person, so I'm not, crying poverty or anything. But I am middle income, and I will be priced out of here pretty soon. I live in Village Green, and from what I hear, the rent is going up like crazy. It's already been going up. Even pre-pandemic, it was going up more than inflation rate, and who knows what's going to happen now. So again, that's going to take a while, so I think we should start pretty soon on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor. I will tell you, Eleanor, that I personally have reached out to our Poughkeepsie DOT planners, and I'm proud to say that the first thing that they did after my encouragement was to paint all our crosswalks and put in new, better signage for our crosswalks as a way to encourage people to use the crosswalk and to encourage drivers to be respectful of the crosswalks, which is why we also, which we did, but we have state approval for the pedestrian crosswalk signs at all of the major intersections and major crosswalks. So we do encourage people to use the crosswalks. We are putting a lot of effort into maintaining them in lieu of while we wait for traffic studies to happen. So thank you for your attention to that, but we are trying to make improvements. Any other comments? Mesh,
Unrelated to our
you
project.
can have, it's public comment.
Oh,
Don't step on your phone.
I just want to ask if there's any plans to do any paving on Garden Street.
Do you want to answer that?
Any plans to do any paving on Garden Street? Not.
Garden Street's pretty beat up.
Right.
Well, can you tell them the process?
So, okay, so basically the way we choose the roads to pave, back in 2019, the county came through and rated all the roads in the village, basically a score from 60 to 90 something. And they gave us a list ranking all the roads. So actually I have a map that I put together linking all the little roads. And we've been trying to go from worst to first as we go along. The mitigating factor of that is that we also try to bunch the roads together.
Sure.
Because the contractors charge pickup and drop-off fees, so we like to have them go to one area, do one area, and then move on. So we've been working off the list. We did the Orchard Park this year. That was next on the worst list. And then I'm not sure where, off the top of my head, I don't know where Garden shows up, but that's how we do the process.
So there's nothing in the immediate future?
Well, these decisions are made usually over the winter when we go to the budget process.
Okay.
Our goal is to pave every village road
And
in the course of 10 years, because we try to use and will use New York State funding to help do this. And by using that money, you can't touch a road for another 10 years. But we have 11 road miles in the village of Rhinebeck, and applying the formula that Trustee Lewis has been using and the rate at which we've been paving, we can and should be able to, God willing, be able to hit all our roads in the village of Rhinebeck within that time period. I will tell you, you could arm wrestle anybody here on which road is the worst. All right, we can start with Manor. You can even come drive down my road if you would like. Right, and
come around the corner from me.
We'll arm wrestle over this, but we do have a chart.
Okay.
We do, and the goal is basically to get the village on a sustainable program so that, we don't get to this point again. And you've seen, I don't know if you've seen some of the really nice paving jobs.
I
that
had
we've
to
done
Chestnut
lately.
Street.
Yeah, and that should last a good long time.
Yeah,
So-
beautiful job.
So,
Very jealous.
sure.
Okay, any more public comment? No more arm wrestling? All right, we're gonna move on. The next is a marijuana discussion update. And what I planned, and we already publicized this, was to have Trustee Bertozzi just go over the survey and talk about the survey. We've had some comments on it related to it, but I would like Trustee Bertozzi to survey that, to outline that for us.
Yeah, and thanks to Donna in her absence for that comment. So we did put out a survey to hear perspectives on whether or not the village board should vote to allow or disallow marijuana dispensaries or lounges. And I want to say thank you to those who took the time to take that survey, some of you more than once. And as promised, we're sharing the results. The point of the survey was not to take an official vote. As you pointed out, it was not a scientific survey. It was anonymous. So just keep that in mind. It's just another data point that we can consider. What I found most valuable were the comments, just to hear what are people thinking, what are people talking about. So it's not an official vote, and it's not by any means going to be determining what we decide to do as a board. But I do want to share some interesting information. So as was mentioned, over 700 surveys were submitted. 64% said yes to dispensaries, 53% said no to lounges. There were over 260 comments submitted. I reviewed each one, looking for themes, looking for what are the talking points that I'm hearing here. And I basically consolidated those down into 18 themes. And then every time another comment mentioned that same theme, I added basically like a tally mark in order to gain some weight in what were the most often mentioned themes. One of the things the survey tool did then was create a word cloud of the most often mentioned words. Sometimes these are not, again, particularly useful, but sometimes it's just interesting to see how those words float in a cloud. What I noticed from the cloud was tourists, residents, parking, and revenue, okay? So there's definitely a discussion. People are curious, how much revenue would this bring us? Our taxes are very high. We have a lot of aging infrastructure. People are interested in revenue. At the same time, loud and clear, as we so often hear on this board, people are really concerned about parking, traffic, overcrowding. What would these types of businesses do to impact that? And does that outweigh the potential revenue gains or other positives of marijuana? Marijuana is now legal, so some folks were saying, what right do we have to treat this any differently than, say, alcohol? Some folks mentioned the medical uses and the ease of access. But many, many people did say they would prefer to see this not within the bounds of the village, but maybe someplace in the town where school children aren't walking right by it, where we don't have to worry about the parking and the overcrowding. And many people did also mention, hey, why don't we opt out for now? And we can always opt in later once all the kinks are worked out elsewhere, to play a conservative angle on it. So I found the survey useful, even though it was anonymous and not perfect in that way. I did find it useful just to hear more of the conversation. It was, in a way, it was like eavesdropping in on all the neighbors chatting with each other about this topic. And for me, sitting on the board, that was really useful. So with that, I wanted to just mention, if anybody wants to access the survey results or any of these comments, you can find that through the Village of Rhinebeck website.
Thank you.
Sure.
All right, one of the thoughts tonight was to enter into a board discussion on trying to set a timeline or a path in which we should go down, right? Because a lot of this is predicated by timing. As we discussed at the public forum, if we opt out, it is either a permissive referendum or a referendum, depending on how the board chooses, but that is the process that has to be used, and that comes with timing associated with it, which we've been sharing with everybody in our publications and in our public outreach forums that we've had, right? Opting in, state made it easy. They just said, do nothing, and you opt in, right? So, but we are on a path to make that decision. And what I wanted to do tonight was not so much maybe make the decision, but at least try to set the path that we're on so that we know that we can meet a December 31st deadline if we have to. It is not a requirement to meet a December 31st deadline in terms of a referendum or a vote. It is a requirement that we pass a resolution prior to December 31st, which requires the drafting of a resolution and a public hearing, and then that would set the associated timing, okay? So we do, as a board, really need to start thinking seriously about how that timing affects us. If we want to go with a resolution and push referendum into next year, that is totally a viable way to which we can go, or we can try to do it this year, if we so like, or we can do nothing, just to make sure. And we can take this and we can split it apart. You know, if we want to, we can say, what about as we did in the survey, we said, what about dispensaries? What about lounges? The resolution could also split those two apart. They don't have to be mingled together and voted on as one. They can be voted on as separate entities in terms of how we want to go forward, right? So I'm right now going to open up to the board for discussion in terms of how the board would like to proceed, you know, in terms of doing this, you know. And I have my feelings, but I want to hear from the board as well. Does anybody want to, I hear you mumbling, so I'll go for it.
I would say I'm not sure about the timing, but I think that having a public referendum on this is a very good idea. There are clearly passionate thoughts on both sides of this discussion, and I really think by holding a referendum, we will find out what the people of Rhinebeck really want. And that is only one person, one vote in the referendum. Right. And I think that would be a good way to determine what villagers want to do, and that would be my way to move forward with this. So the mechanics of that would be to opt out of lounges, opt out of dispensaries, and then that would go to a referendum where people would either accept or reject the law.
And that you're suggesting not a permissive referendum, a referendum?
I'm suggesting that the board require a referendum on it because I think that it's such a polarizing topic that people should, that's the best way for people to be heard. People are going to come, they're going to write letters. Usually we get people very passionate. There's some people who may not want to come up and speak, but in the privacy of a voting booth, we can make their opinions felt. So that's the way I would like to see us proceed.
So on that note too, and I think because Vanessa's survey at least takes a temperature. The mechanics of a permissive referendum are that 20% of the voters trigger one. So why make them stomp around and do that if we know that we got 20% on each side?
Yeah, I think you should go ahead and schedule.
Just go ahead and schedule one.
Yeah.
Now, also on that note, I really don't think it should wait till the election, and not just because, I have to decide whether I'm gonna run or not, but because I think that the issue requires like a lot of focus and a lot of attention, and that I think it's better that people don't like casually come in and say, hey, what's this referendum? Is it, it's about marijuana? I think they'll spend more time thinking about the issue. I also think that since we've had 3 or 2.5 workshops on this, that it should be done this fall, because it's sort of like the issue is on the table right now. And the trail gets cold if we wait 6 months until March and put that on the ballot with the election issue. However, it will cost money to have a special election. Yeah. And time and energy.
That's what we're here for.
We might have to buy a fancy new box too, because, no, I'm kidding about the boxes. We have a perfectly good box with a slot on the top.
I'll just piggyback on that. I mean, I found the most fascinating part of the survey were the comments, and there's a lot of varying opinions, and very strong opinions, and I agree. I think we should figure out a way, and if it's opting out of both, to have every villager who feels passionately about this vote on it. And I don't think a permissive, I don't feel the need to force 20% of the voters to pull together a vote if we can trigger one just with a shake of the
As a
head.
village, we can.
Okay, great.
Which is different than a town who
Okay.
cannot,
Oh,
right?
well, that's good to know.
We, as a village board, can vote to go right to a referendum.
Okay, so I would agree with that, and I agree with Brant that the sooner rather than later. We have so many issues facing us. I mean, we can just look at the agenda. We just had, 2 fairly contentious issues. I mean, just today. So, I mean, I would like to put, issues to bed as quickly as we can. So, while we're thinking about it, we might as well do it. And I do appreciate it takes time and money, and maybe that's a conversation we should have about staff in Village Hall as well, before all of our heads explode. But thank you, Martina, in advance for all of the work you do. Happy to do it.
Could I just share my opinion as someone on the board? I do not think that lounges make sense, in part because how bizarre is the idea of just going to a marijuana lounge? Like, say marijuana becomes really totally mainstream, why would you have to go to a devoted place of consumption just for marijuana? That doesn't even really make sense. In terms of dispensaries, I'm really sympathetic to folks who use it for medical reasons or recreational. It is legal. But I hear loud and clear the concerns about overcrowding and traffic, and I just don't know if it's worth it to be one of the early adopters here in Rhinebeck. So I would personally, can I say how I would vote? I would vote to opt out, and then let the kind of gold rush mentality play out across the state. And then if down the road it's totally calmed down and there is a dispensary profile that makes sense in the village where maybe it's locally owned and very responsibly run, I could see that fitting into the village down the road. But personally, I would vote to opt out on both accounts. Just just being mindful of, excuse me, just being mindful of we don't need to rush into things, and the state is sort of forcing our hand to make that decision. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with it, so frequently, I agree with Ms. Gershon over there. I'm sorry if I pronounced her last name wrong. The fact that, what's that?
You could agree with her with using any name.
Oh, okay. The fact that there's going to be some kind of, I'm concerned about any drug that's not regulated by the FDA hitting the retail situation. And if someone invented Benadryl today, and the FDA said, no, we're not touching that, I really wouldn't want to see that on the shelves, the next day without an FDA looking over it. There's going to be some kind of New York State regulatory authority. I don't know if they're going to, regulate the color of the packaging. Are they going to regulate toxicity? Are they going to regulate what things are laced with or not laced with? I mean, let's see this thing get road tested. And then we can always opt in later on, in the future, if, like what Vanessa and what Martha was saying.
Did you get vaccinated?
What?
Did you get vaccinated?
Sure.
Yeah, I know. So, I mean, that's a quandrum we always have. Do we or when do we or do we not? Because the vaccine was not FDA approved when we were all.
Well, it was
asked
for
to do it.
emergency use.
Yeah,
I wouldn't have gotten it if it
public
weren't
health.
approved by the emergency,
Yeah.
for emergency
But
uses.
I'm not pointing to you, it's just that in general, we have a decision to make. And I want to defer to the voters. I want to hear the voters. I want to hear what the voters have to say on this issue. I think it's important that we, as a body of government, listen to the voters and really follow their guidelines and their recommendations in terms of how we do that. And the only way to do that, the only path that gets us there is to go down the opt-out path. And I also agree that we should not put 20% of our people to muster a petition right now as we're entering into the winter months or whatever, and the timing associated with it, whatever it takes, and go right to referendum, right, and set that timing. So I think it sounds to me like we have a consensus of the board, right, to move forward, and I will work with legal. I will draft a resolution to come forward for our next village board meeting, which then we can adopt, which will then set the timetable for adopt or not adopt, depending on how the board wants to go. But then we need to set a public hearing. We'll need to have probably some more public forums on this subject. As Brant said, we've already had 2+ forums on it. I'm thankful that they were well attended and have a lot of input from the community already in a lot of ways. So I think the decision is made, right? And we can end this discussion and move forward tonight when it's 8 o'clock after 2 hours and say, let's move forward and draft a resolution. The resolution will be split into 2 components, a resolution for opting out of dispensaries and a resolution for opting out of lounges, all right? And that the resolution be written so that we go right straight to referendum. And then the next board meeting, set that date.
That'd be the 28th September board
What?
meeting?
This next,
Okay.
yes.
Next board meeting, yeah.
The next,
Okay.
in September. Yeah. We're going to have to move quickly. We cannot
Yeah.
wait. And the message that I'm hearing, and I agree, is let's not prolong. We have, as Lydia said, we have many things on our plates. We should try to, if we can, move things. Our goal is to move things forward, and make it, and do things. So I don't believe we need to vote. This is a discussion. We will vote when we bring the resolution forward. So I am making a recommendation to agree with the board on how we will proceed. Okay? Done. We're going to move on. ARP funding. We also had public forums on the American Rescue Plan funding, which through the federal state government, the village of Rhinebeck received $261,000 or something. We got an additional $1,000 recently above the $260,000 in American Rescue Fund money. That is divided into two payments. We already received the first payment of $130,000 and change, and next year in July, we will receive the second payment of $130,000, right? The two items that we want to discuss tonight, as a result of, one of them is a result of you, the public, coming forward on the public forums and making a recommendation to the board. Again, not all of us were able to be present at a time, but for those that were here, we heard you and we wanted to react to that. And so what I want to do is really talk about dedicating a portion of that money to some of the non-for-profit units within the village of Rhinebeck. And that non-for-profit units are really those units that go above and beyond in terms of reaching out to our community and providing a public service to our community and directly to our residents of our community. We've talked about food pantries at the public forum, but a food pantry is only one portion of what some of these services do. They are, in a lot of ways, we don't have a social services village government function. But people in the village have taken up that responsibility for us. And they are providing direct feedback, direct input to community residents, whether it be with food, rent relief, career counseling, training on computers, counseling on careers, and working with a very large portion of our community that many of us don't probably see unless you're there. I will share a personal story because I'm passionate about this. When the pandemic hit, one of the first things besides making sure that our first responders had everything they need was to make sure our residents had everything they need. And I immediately pulled together a task force that consisted of stakeholders within the community, whether they be in these organizations that are participating in this. We reached out to Rotarians who have a commitment to serve. We reached out to other organizations, and we were holding weekly meetings, reviewing the status of how our community was responding and how we were able to take care of our residents. And one of the things we did, we found another need to be able to not only open another pantry here in the village. And I worked every week at that pantry, right, until we could get another organization to fulfill that void and come in and take over that for us so that could continue to thrive to serve our community. And we did this throughout the year. I mean, it was rain, snow, sleet, or hail. We were there because they depended on us, right? But this, I want to just, again, say it's much larger than that. So what I'm proposing tonight is that we take $10,000 and give it to two organizations, right, that have these services that are reaching out to the much broader community in the village of Rhinebeck. And that is the Reformed Church and the Church of Messiah, who both have programs that are dedicated to the larger audience. Granted, there's many others. There's lots of organizations that do great things here in the village. But these organizations do not thrive on grants. They do not get multitudes of money through federal funds, state funds, county funds to be able to make them. They depend on donations. And throughout the pandemic, those donations dried up a lot because people were not out and about. So they have potentially gone through a large portion of their funds. And now they are working hard. They're not giving up. They didn't say we're out of money and close the doors. That's not the attitude that they take. I've met with Pastor Luis. I've met with Father Richard. And we've had very heartful conversations about how they can benefit the community and how a small donation like this could be able to them to reach out. So I'm posing it to the board. I am making a motion that we take $10,000 to give to the Church of Messiah and their program. I don't have it pulled up on my computer, but I can pull up the name of it if you would like, and the Reformed Church for their community outreach programs, and dedicate that fund to serving the residents of our community. So do I have a second, and then we go into discussion?
Second.
Was that you, Vanessa? I'm sorry.
Second.
Yeah, thank you, Vanessa. All right, now I'm going to open up the discussion.
I am in favor of this. I feel like generally, I know we've talked about how it's not really the role of government to be a grant-giving body out to nonprofits. I feel that this is an unprecedented time, and this is one of the intended uses that was described in how to use these funds. So I don't think we're setting some sort of precedent where now we're going to be giving grants out to nonprofits all the time. This is sort of a one-time deal, but I think it would really be a good use of the funds for those in our community who are the most vulnerable. There's a lot of other things we can spend the money on, and we'll spend the bulk of it on infrastructure, no doubt. But I feel like this would be putting the money in some really, in the hands that are dedicated to helping the most vulnerable in our community.
So I'm one of the people that has been very concerned about using government funds in this way, and I know that it's allowed by the law, but as someone who's worked in the foundation world and the nonprofit world, I'm very uncomfortable with the idea of us being a grant-giving body. That being said, these are, two organizations that are very, intimately involved with us here in the village. So I have a question and an idea. The question is, do they need this money right now? Because the idea is perhaps, I know we're waiting on a report for Village Hall. Pete apparently has an idea for a sign. I don't know, maybe it's the former nonprofit treasurer in me, but I'd like to see the dollar signs next to everything that we'd like to do with this money before we deploy any of it. Because so we just know what we're dealing with. Because I would feel, well, feel is the wrong word, but like I would be concerned if we, had a very good use of the project funds and we were under by $10,000 or we were over by 10, and then suddenly it was like, okay, well, this plus the sign plus the whatever we do next week plus the whatever we do in a couple months, like, if we'd sort of thought about it all holistically, then we could have done all of it, but perhaps not at the amounts that we chose to do. So those are my thoughts for the moment.
I can answer a little bit about the timing.
Yeah.
One of the programs that the Church of Messiah wants to run is basically the program which is in the first paragraph of the write-up that you have, which is to emergency grant fund, right, that they are doing, and they're hiring an intern to be able to go out and work with the community to do that. They've put a price tag on this of $10,000. They've raised $5,000 for that program.
Okay.
So that isn't an immediate need that they see, because they see a direct need today to help people who have suffered through the pandemic who are still suffering.
Yeah.
We may be a year until we get your answers until what we want to do, if that's the choice.
Yeah.
And so, it is our choice. It is what we can do. It is things that we can put a direct need on in terms of providing that support to help offset that. At the Reformed Church, they would be appreciative of anything that we could do.
Right.
They will survive. They won't go away. They will continue to do everything that they plan to do, right? But just not as much, right? Again, they're not organizations. They're very thinly staffed like we are. It's difficult for them to go out and raise the money and do that. Reformed Church has one paid person.
Right.
That's it, right? And everything else is done by volunteers in that organization, and it's great to see that, right? This money can be used from them as they put forward in need immediately. So it's not like it's, can't, so, that's my response.
Yeah, and the other thing is, whether it's the infrastructure project for Center Street water main, which is probably $300,000 to do Center Street water, or Village Hall, no doubt, over $100,000. Like, this is an urgent need, and it's not much, and it's not going to make or break whether we do, Center Street water main or Village Hall project.
Well, we don't have enough money to do both. We weren't gifted like the counties who receive millions and are really struggling in some ways at the places to spend it. We have $260,000.
We have some ideas, they want to spend it.
Yeah, I know. I know, and they are giving it to organizations such as this as well. And that's what their counties are doing, as municipalities are doing, to help offset that need. But we can't do a water main project and this building.
No, that's
a decision we're gonna have to make.
Yeah, that I get.
So I'm opposed to this. I agree with Lydia that we're not a grant-making authority. We don't have the expertise. There's tons of 501c3s that are around for great purposes, mental health, schizophrenia, physical problems, like Parkinson's disease, and, I'm mentioning things that affected me deeply over my life. But what we're here for is, for municipal purposes, and that's what we're experts at. Somebody mentioned before about how plowing would be an unauthorized gift, because we would be plowing a private driveway. That's the law. I don't know if they put the law in abeyance, but if they put the law in abeyance and we're violating the spirit of the law with this grant decision. I know that the economy is bad, but we have like 5% unemployment. I actually served on this village board after the hangover from the recession of, 12 years ago, and it was much worse. We had horrible budgets, we had horrible unemployment. There was a real estate, adjustment and almost a collapse in the economy, and people were losing their homes. I'm grant vulnerable with that water line project on Center Street. There's not a lot of revenue sources for us because we're not going to get, lightning's not going to strike twice on the water line project. I don't think we're going to get a second grant on that. And 250 is not even enough to do it. So I'll take what I can get, or we'll take what we can get, I believe, on that. There's all sorts of good causes. I just don't think this is what we're great at. The other thing is, there's, the only thing we've ever really given money to is we give $1,000 a year, I think, to the Historical Foundation. And that's because they have such a close connections, both civically and to our zoning code and our master plan and the preservation of, in the architectural integrity of our community. So I just can't vote.
We never had this one-time opportunity either, though. So it makes a difference in terms of what we've done.
We're not flush. Could I just say one more thing about, when Karen mentioned the fund balance for the water department, we had 500-something thousand in our fund balance, but we pledged 300 if we get the grant for the,
That's correct.
for the plant, so.
We have 800, but, yeah.
What?
I thought it was 800, but.
No, it wasn't.
In the water.
In the water.
Water, yeah. We pledged 300 of that. So,
Okay.
That's where I'm at.
Rick, you want to comment before I call for a vote?
I am terribly torn. And.
That's why you need to make the tough decisions.
That's right.
You're the swing vote.
It's like, feels like a hardest vote I've ever taken.
Justice Kennedy, how do you feel?
I am very much appreciative of Brent and Liddy's argument that, you know, we're government, this isn't what we do. Normally, we don't have the resources to follow up. I don't like the idea that we are picking winners and losers. You know, there may be other organizations, as Brent would say, there are other very worthy organizations that are out there, and they've come before us, and we've said, no, we do not give out, we don't give out grants. On the other side of the issue is, these are two successful local charities. During the public hearing that was held earlier, people did ask us if we would support some of our local charities with this money. And I think ultimately, I'm going to make my decision, that when people are in need, and there is a need, we should act to help to alleviate that need. And if that comes down the road to, you know, become a problem and that we have to deal with other people, and people say, how can we give it in this and not to that? I think we'll have to, I'm willing to take on that issue because I think that there is a real need. And I would like to meet the need, but I have trepidations about where that'll take us. So I think ultimately I would vote for this, but it would be this one time with these funds, and I really do not want to get into this business again.
So, okay, all right.
No, go ahead.
No, I don't want to cross-examine somebody else.
Okay.
You just gave a lucid position, so let's.
That's why we're a board and we can vote. All right, I'm going to call for a vote on a motion. I'm going to start on my right. Trustee Slavy.
Nay?
Trustee Lewitt.
Aye.
Trustee Nutter.
Nay.
Trustee Bertozzi.
Aye.
Mayor Bassett. A. So, by a vote of 3-2. Thank you. Next, for the ARP, one of the issues that came up recently was, and also fits into the guidelines, was emergency response. And one of the things we desperately need in the village is some sort of billboard that we can put out immediate messages on, alert people to whether it's a floodplain, a flood, a pandemic, a cooling center, which we have set up here many times, and it's hard to get out unless people visually see it, that we are offering the facility. We do not have the ability to do that, right, in the village of Rhinebeck. In the past, we've been able to try when we can, borrow from the county, you know, but
Doesn't always work.
it's not a guarantee that we can do that. We do have one billboard sign, that's a radar sign, that is currently broke. It's 13 years old. It's really been great for us. We use it all over the village. When people say, why is everybody speeding on my street? It gives us data. It gives us information and allows us to then, as a board, to work with that information on moving forward and making a decision on what we're going to do. So I've been working with Sergeant Dunn on what could we do here and how could he best use a electronic billboard sign, you know, for us going forward. And he suggested that, and did the research, that there is availability to have a sign that does both. We can have a message board and we can have it, use it as a radar, so to speak, if we so choose to. So I'd like to propose, I'm bringing up the document, I don't have it right now. It's from Custom Signs, a use of the American Rescue Plan money to purchase an emergency billboard sign for $20,098. This is off the state bid, which will consist of a smart billboard, right, wheel locks, so it doesn't get stolen. You know, a traffic data recording system, right? And solar connectivity so that we're not pulling it in, charging the batteries, taking it back out, and use it as a replacement for the current sign that we have. And it comes with a modem and GPS so that we can download the data, and we can, from Village Hall, we can change the message board, right? And not have to get into the programming. So it really does a lot of great things for us, and it is a need that our police agency has brought forward, and I fully support as a need of a way of providing information to our village residents. So that motion is to purchase the sign from Custom Signals for $20,098. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Discussion.
I'm concerned about the size. This thing is, the screen, the panel's 32 by 72?
Yeah, and now we picked that sign purposely because it's a smaller version that fits in and doesn't sit out over the traffic lane. So this was taken into consideration, the size in terms of what we can use on our streets and not be a traffic hindrance. So that is a recommendation by Sergeant Dunn in terms of that size.
It just seems like it would, it maybe not be a display. It's 32 inches by 72 inches might not be a good fit for our residential community.
I can only tell you that's his recommendation. You know, I trust him.
Well, I know, but I also trust what 72 by 32 inches
Right.
looks like, and that's big.
6 feet. 6 feet.
6 feet, yeah,
This
and
is-
almost 3 feet.
This is smaller than the ones that the orange ones, for instance, that were out and about in front of the fair?
Yes.
This is not that size?
No,
Okay,
no, I don't remember the size of that.
much larger, okay,
Much
just
larger.
want to be clear. And it's not, this is not going to be out all the time, this is really for special purposes?
Yeah.
Well, but we had one out over on Knollwood all the time. Is this gonna serve that purpose too? The traffic?
You mean the speed,
No,
Yeah.
that's on a
solar
pole.
powered seed one? That's just a little guy on a pole.
That's the solar speed.
But that's still, this has that capability, right?
Yeah, and that one's not
That one's
portable.
permanent,
This
yeah.
is that's permanent, this is portable. I don't know if you know, but we've taken the one that we have that's currently broke. It's been, just in the last couple months, it's been on Platt, it's been on Knollwood, it's been on Livingston, it's been on Mulberry, because we do get a lot of requests from our residents, you know, in terms of how to manage, you know, what's happening on our street. And it's a valuable tool to have. And so that
And it's broke.
portableness is important to
It's
us.
broke beyond,
It's 13 years old. We're trying to get a switch, a simple switch for it right now, which we can't resource. So can it be repaired? TBD, but this goes beyond that.
Because that
Capability.
one doesn't have the capability to program in a message, emergency
It's a speed
message.
only.
Yeah.
It's radar only.
I have to say that I'm not sure I'd want to see this sign used as the radar sign. I don't know how much those radar-only signs are, but I think this should be used for special occasions. I agree with Brian, like, that's a lot on a street to be sitting on. 6 feet is taller than I am. It's a lot to be sitting on a street just for doing radar, just for running radar.
Yeah.
So I think I'd rather see us get one of the compact radar units for being on the street. But if we have important messages, detours,
Street closed.
street closed,
Cooling center.
center closed, cooling center, water main break, we do need a sign for that. So I think we should do that. But my guesstimate is I'd like to see the smaller sign, the smaller trailer sign,
Yeah.
repaired or replaced for placing on the street.
I mean, just
then
does.
we'll have 3 signs.
Well, assuming the old one is assuming the old one is getting repaired, you know,
Yeah.
if the old one can be fixed, we'll use that if we can. We should look at replacing that.
Would the cost come down if we take out the radar element?
It looks like by only $740.
Yes. Traffic data recording system and flashcard, $740.
And we might want it on Route 9. I mean, I can.
Yeah,
we
I
have-
could see during a festival, during something like sheep and wool or whatever, yeah.
Well, there's there used to be a lot of events where we did a lot of street closures, right? There was we've got charity races.
Porch Fest.
Porch Fest, even the gentleman's ride that comes through if you have to close off the street for a little while. So I think having a sign is a really good idea.
We could rent it out too.
Yeah, there you go. We could run it to the county.
Given some of the quotes that I got for renting out a sign this past summer for outdoor dining, like, we rented out for a lot of money.
It was $1,000.
revenue
It was
$1,000 a month, a week.
No, it was $1,000 a week.
$1,000 a week.
New revenue stream.
I know, right?
There we go.
All right.
And just not to beat a dead horse, but, you know, this pot of money that we have that is now $10,000 smaller, and if we vote to do this, it's now going to be $30,000 smaller after this night. I'm just registering I'm setting up a flare of, you know, we don't know how much this is gonna cost, it's not gonna be zero. We already know that we have other infrastructure projects that are gonna be more than what we have. And I agree that this is something that we need. I mean, I'm not trying to get in the way of that, but I just have a hard time with like a big pot of money, and we don't get big pots of money as gifts from heaven, all the time. And, maybe breaking it up into 15 different things turns out to be the best thing for the village, but I'm just concerned that because we don't know what those 15 different things are, and we don't even know what some of the big ones are, that we're spending this money before we have a really good idea of how we want to spend it.
I think we really do have a good idea what we want to spend it on. And I really think we've been talking about it frequently and that's this building,
Yeah.
right? And this building needs a major
but like we have
overhaul.
I thought we were gonna do the water one.
Yeah, well,
We passed a $6 million resolution, and, we don't have it under our current rate structure, so we're vulnerable with water.
Isn't this a great problem to have?
I mean,
Isn't this a great problem? All right.
One second, to Lydia's point though, we just learned from Karen that we are well over our 25% fund balance cap. And this would be a one-time expense that would be, could be an appropriate use to use the fund balance if you guys want to keep the powder dry.
Or we could use the fund balance
Or
for
we
that
could use
other
the
one.
fund
For the other
balance
part,
to offset
but
this
it
one,
would.
For this,
Right.
Yeah.
but not for the water.
All right.
That's right, so if we use fund balance for this, this remains available for water.
Or we use the ARP money, because we have to spend it inside 2 years, right? You can't just sit on it, right? Theoretically, the fund balance, we're also supposed to spend down this year,
You don't have to.
right?
That's not a requirement.
Ideally,
but ideally.
according to the goals of the,
Yes.
of the policy.
If we think we have other bigger things coming, it's always wise to
Yeah, keep
Right,
it.
hold
look at
off.
it right
Yeah,
now.
no, I don't think we should spend savings unless we have to.
I have a question. This audit, what was that, what was the,
Do we have any idea when it's gonna be complete?
what was the forecasted cost on that?
November, 10 weeks?
It was 12 weeks, so it'll be
12
done
weeks.
later this fall.
Yeah.
But what was
I think
the
it's November.
forecasted expense?
We only got the expense of doing the study, of doing the
Right.
audit.
Right,
So we
What is
don't
it?
yet, it's gonna have a laundry list of proposed projects,
yeah.
each with line items for estimated costs.
So
So
it's
I-
5,000 each? Like, we're trying to get a grant for 5, and then we're paying 5 for the study?
We
We
paid
got,
5.
we already got the matching.
We already got it?
No, we didn't already get it, but it's guaranteed, you just apply for it, it's not competitive.
Oh,
So we paid 5,
okay.
and we'll get 5 matching through Flex Tech.
Because that's going to spring in all sorts of ideas.
Right.
Yes.
Expensive
Yeah.
things.
All right, so I'm going to call for a vote. So I'm going to start on my left. Brant?
I was hoping to go last. I'll just say no, probably because I'm not going last.
Okay.
I'll say no.
I'm sorry, I wanted to mess it up. You should tell me when to go last. Vanessa?
I'm gonna say aye, I think this is a legitimate use of money.
Lydia?
Given the fact that I tried to find one of these for outdoor dining, which was a COVID issue, I'm gonna say aye, but I'm really hoping this is the last time that we have this conversation until we actually get the results of the audit.
It'll be the last.
Okay.
I will
Yeah.
vote yes on anything besides one of our major big ticket items.
Okay, I think it should come out of fund balance, we should keep the money available, so I'm gonna vote nay.
I vote yay.
Was that yay?
Yes, yes, okay.
So I would have voted nay anyway, because Rick, so given the dynamic, even if I was last, I would have still voted no.
All right, moving on. Small wireless facilities. Thank you for, all right, so, Fran, I'm going to turn this over to you because you really drove.
Yeah, can I run to the restroom while you do that?
Okay. Yeah, so, you know, there was a federal order in like 2019 that basically came up with fifth generation wireless rules, but it's really small wireless facilities. And the difference between a small wireless facility and like our cellular tower is that there's no dimensional restrictions aren't really applicable. So in a normal zoning code, you have a front yard setback, you have a rear yard setback, you have side yard setbacks, you have height requirements, you have fencing requirements, you have screening requirements. The unique thing about small wireless facilities is that they're primarily for rights of way. So there was an industry-friendly, you know, federal order that came down from the FCC that basically allowed carriers to go into right-of-ways. And there's certain things you can do that are reasonable restrictions, as long as you don't materially prohibit their operations. So there's some guidance in the federal order. There was some guidance and some seminars that have been out from NICOM and from Cornell Cooperative. And there's guidance in all sorts of small wireless facility ordinances that are out there. So the basic stuff, the importance of this is that there's certain things that will be presumptively unreasonable, and carriers can come in and sort of push you around a little bit if you don't have any regulations in place. So we put together a draft of a small wireless facilities ordinance. And we had a working group with David Miller and Tim Decker and Judy Merritt and Lydia and me, and we put this draft together. I sort of took the lead when Lydia was gone. It's modeled after an ordinance in Massachusetts from a small city. And we put it out for feedback, and everyone in the group got back to us and contributed some changes. So what we're at with the draft is that the other trustees have seen it and had some comments. Lydia and I have some more modifications we wanted, just some minor tweaking, and Rick had a couple of suggested changes. At this point, we just want to get it to the attorneys for review. Then they would look at the draft, mark it up, they're the experts, and then it comes back for workshops, for discussion with the public, for discussion with the board on the markups, and you know, where they're at. And then it would go to public hearing. But it behooves all communities to get a fifth generation ordinance in place. And that's what NICOM is suggesting to people, to municipalities. So that's what we have is a 9-page draft that we'd like to get to the attorneys for review.
Is that a motion to send to the lawyer?
Second.
Thank you, Lydia.
Yep.
I'm assuming that was your motion, right?
Yeah, but I was just going to say, now it's comment, so it's comment.
Comments after.
I said there's some things that they needed to research at the beginning. I said, you know, how many approximate hours do you think you're going to spend on this? You know, they said 8 to 10. So another big piece of this is the seeker, according to the one lawyer, I forgot his name, but it's not Emily, it's her partner.
Dave,
yeah. He said that seeker is very important, and seekers and the environmental impact is very important. When they say environmental, they mean visual, you know, because we have one of the largest historic districts in New York. And so the seeker folks, engineering folks, they're going to be really in touch with the nuts and bolts. And if we have some aesthetic things that don't fit the technology, you know, there's going to be more feedback from our...
but what we really wanted to make sure was that we had kind of the broad strokes as the board feels that we need in here before we send it to attorneys to nitpick, because we didn't want them to nitpick a draft that we were then going to upend.
I think this is a terrific effort. I think it's really great. I mean, obviously there's a couple changes here and there, but overall, it's a terrific idea. Well, one question for you, with seeker is the state. It's a state environmental quality review, right?
Right, it's a
So,
state
Are you
regulation.
saying that the state's gonna come through with some level of regulation of these?
No, the
boxes
seeker
as
is the
well?
state regs, about the impacts and, it's archaeological, it's,
Right, and how does that integrate with this, is what I don't understand.
aesthetics is considered an environmental impact. So zoning stuff always has to go through seeker.
So this has to go through seeker?
Yeah. And it'll have to go through twice. Now, when we have to take the ordinance through seeker, and then also when an applicant comes in, let's say we get a license agreement with a carrier, and they're gonna do a 5G network in our rights of way, and they'll go on some small sites on our buildings and stuff. When they go through zoning, they're gonna have to do another seeker.
But that's on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so will all the zoning review and.
Right, positive declaration.
Yeah, I just want to make comment that, for the public, that, there's a lot of talk about 5G, right? And I'm being very clear, 5G isn't here. We do not have 5G. We're lucky if we have reliable 4G in our area.
Right.
But a lot of cell people, or whatever you want to call them, vendors or whatever, they are adopting this now and getting ready for 5G. So they would put in a 4G small wireless facility that then they could modify to make 5G when 5G comes available.
Because you have to do it sequentially.
No, not really. No, they could go right to 5G.
Yeah?
Yeah, oh no, they could put in 4G today. If we didn't have this law, they could come and put in a 4G thing today, right?
5G thing.
And 5G may be a year, 2 years down the road, and they knew what up it. They've been working on our tower for quite some time. They are getting it ready for 5G, right? They are modifying, not increasing, not adding, but they're modifying to make that accessible, right, for 5G. So I think it is right, the time is right, and thank you for doing this to get this out.
Yeah, so that's a good point, and I probably should have clarified that. It's really a regulation of size, like the antennas are smaller than 3 cubic feet, and the equipment cabinets, which is the computer equipment, is 28 cubic feet or smaller. Then it triggers the federal order, which also triggers our our small wireless facilities ordinance. So I shouldn't even really focus so much on 5G, it's just small stuff, small facilities.
And that's what's important. And I also want to make sure that it doesn't prohibit us from advancing technology in the village of Rhinebeck, which we so desperately need. I can stand at one end of my house and have a great conversation and walk to the next room and lose that conversation. So, we desperately need better communications, and, wherever the technology leads us. I don't think this blocks us, from and being prohibitive of going forward, so I like it.
Yeah, I think it's important for the public to know that the federal regulations on this are incredibly industry friendly. And so any kind of restrictions that we put on it have to be inside those federal regulations. And so even if we make this as restrictive as we possibly can, and this is pretty tight, it doesn't prevent anybody from showing up. It just prevents them from putting a pole in your front garden without asking you about it. Which
has happened in this area.
In a lot of places. So, it designs how close these poles can be together, it designs what they look like in the historic district. It just puts a whole bunch of requirements around it so that, we have this new technology coming in, but in a way that complements the physical environment of the village.
So, Brian, that brought up a question. So if somebody approached us tomorrow and said they want to put in a small wireless facility, we can put them at bay because we have this under discussion?
I don't know, you can't declare a moratorium just because you have something, yeah.
I didn't say moratorium, I just said we could hold off because we have this, but.
Well, they would have to file something with the plan.
We have to, you mean if we pass it today?
Well, no, I'm just saying,
Oh,
we're
no,
not
we
passing
can't, we
this
have to
today.
pass it.
We have to pass it before we can stop
Yeah.
it. Okay.
And the
Okay.
planning board will be the body that's kind of reviewing applications and seeing whether or not they're meeting the ordinance.
Yeah,
If we adopt this law, it becomes their.
And they have to fast track it because there's this thing called the shot clock, which gives you 60 days. If you go on an existing pole, you have 60 days to make up your decision, and if you build a new pole, it's 90, which is hopefully that'll get changed with a different FCC, but that's the environment we're working with right now. So.
Okay, I'm going to call for a vote And we're going to do this by show of hands. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So carried. Very good. All right. I think, Brent, the next one is yours too, the EA filter valve purchase.
Oh, yeah, that's a little thing. This is an actuator valve which actually regulates the on and off of valves. It's an actuator thing. It shuts the filter off while backwashing to allow for proper backwash. And there's two of these, and this is a unique item. I'm not even sure we really needed to take this in front of the board, but I just wanted to show it to you. So it's $2,312 for two actuators.
I second it. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Next one is chimney repair. We have a chimney on Village Hall, which serves as our furnace, and we have a quote for $3,650 to repair our chimney. The chimney, if you look at those water stains right up there, a couple weeks ago during a heavy rainstorm, I myself and along with one of our wastewater, David Seeker, we got up on the roof and we were trying to figure out what the leak was causing. We had blocked drains, we had a lot of things. We thought we fixed the problem, but we really did a thorough analysis. We looked and we found that our chimney and the area, the flashing around our chimney is bad. And not only that, the mortar that holds our chimney together is bad. And worse than that, the chimney inspection revealed that our chimney, the flue, is cracked and broken, so now gases are leaking out of the flue into this wall. And we have the winter heating season coming up, and we need to repair the chimney. So this quote is to do all of that stuff, plus put a new liner in the chimney so that we have a safe, reliable operation coming forward for the winter months. Martina did a great job. We said we really need to reach out and talk to everybody else. Martina reached out to, I don't know, half a dozen? All right, whatever. We tried to get additional. Yeah, we tried to get additional quotes to do this. So we made best effort to get the best cost for doing this. And we have just the one quote to work off. So I'm making a motion that we accept the proposal from Home Saver Chimney Relining Systems, who is,
It's actually Master Sweep of the Hudson Valley.
oh,
Yep.
it's on the other side, Master Sweep of the Hudson Valley LLC, I'm sorry. And I want to again thank David Secor, our wastewater operator, for working so closely with me and up on the roof and helping us figure out what we need to do. And
He had a busy week
do this.
that week.
Yeah, so, yeah, while he was doing that, by the way, he was running the plant.
To clarify, there's
It's
two
true.
separate bids, one for the actual chimney masonry
Yeah.
repair and then one for.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry, you're right.
Oh, okay.
So it's a total of $3,650 for the repair, and
And
then
then 3,700.
$750.
The
So
lining,
$7,000 total.
Yes.
Yes.
the lining part seems to be a really good deal. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's hundreds of dollars per inch. So,
That stuff is expensive.
all right, I made a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lydia. Any other discussion?
It just kind of kills me that if we end up doing the work on Village Hall, the chimney might be, a
Might be.
vestige of yesteryear very quickly.
But this is a safety issue getting us into the winter.
Yeah. I'm just wondering if, I don't know, like the toxic fumes, yes. Certainly. But, I wonder if there's any,
I think the tuck pointing is I think the tuck pointing is the water problem,
yeah.
and the toxic fumes is a problem.
With the liner problem. Yeah.
Yeah.
It needs to be lined and
We need to do both of these.
tuck
yeah.
pointed.
I think we need to do both.
Okay.
I don't want the chimney to fall down, and I don't want gases coming into the building.
Yeah.
Right. Any other discussion?
Could I just ask that you authorize both the 3,650 and the 3,750?
Sorry, go ahead.
To be transferred from contingency to the 1620.
Oh, yes, I forgot that, yes. Yeah, since we didn't unbudgeted item, I want to take this out of our contingency fund, the $3,750 and the $3,650 to be used for that. I'm going to call for a vote. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? So carried. Martina, let's get this done. All right. Hopefully, maybe the next will be simpler. I wanted to put on the agenda, COVID is changing. COVID is changing all of our lives. COVID is impacting us every day. COVID has not gone away, right? The pandemic is still here. We're asking you in the audience is to wear masks, whether you're vaccinated or not vaccinated, to help protect us as well and to protect yourself. The governor has passed an extension of the executive order to go allow virtual meetings through year end, all right? So as a board, I want to decide how we want to conduct business going forward through the year end. We can go back to virtual like we were doing before, or stay in the method that we have right now, but we still do not have a hybrid method, just to make sure that everybody's clear on that. We do not have a way to do hybrid. Our planning board has been working day and night to try to figure out how to do it, and they haven't figured out how to do it, and there's some damn smart people there, right? So we don't have the facility, the equipment, the wherewithal to make that happen yet. So I'm going to make a motion, and the motion I have is that I would like to continue with in-person meetings. We have so much on our plate, so much that involves you, the public, to come in, so much that seeing you, hearing you, talking to you is really critical to the decisions that we need to make, and that I believe that if we use the tools that are with us to safeguard us, we can continue as meeting in person, only allowing 3 feet distance spacing and masks going forward in our meetings. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Rick. Discussion.
I think given the volume of work and the issues that are ahead of us, we should stay in person. And if it gets worse, we can always opt out to return to this. But it does seem
Or
we
is
get a
that
lot more
opting in?
engagement.
Are we opting in?
Excuse me?
Sorry.
Right, I know, we can opt in.
Do we have to go to referendum?
Only among the board members. We can also do it if we have we've been trying to divide up the meetings, if we have something that has very little public business on it, or mostly pro forma stuff, we can do that one remotely, and if we have something with a larger turnout, we should do that one in person.
Yeah. Our goal was to only do that during the summer, and now we're into
No,
September, and we're
it's
still going.
no, mission creep.
Yeah, okay.
I agree. The planning board and the zoning board are having the same conversation, obviously. They both feel that because of, the public input is two sides of a coin, right? It's easier to have a public hearing with everyone here, physically here, but sometimes it's more difficult for people to get to Village Hall. Sometimes people don't feel comfortable coming to Village Hall. But it's not virtually impossible, but it is very difficult to run public comment online. And, the moderator has to be very on the ball. People feel like they're muted when they don't want to be muted, and blah, 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 blah. So I agree that I think we should stay in person, but I don't, do we have a mask mandate in Village Hall for the public?
We have not yet.
I do think that for everybody's safety and also for everybody's peace of mind, requiring masks unless you're speaking, I think might be a nice way to compromise on that.
You're talking about anybody coming to Village Hall to conduct business,
Yeah.
not just meetings. This is meetings and business.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to be clear about that.
Oh, yeah,
Because
no.
we have a lot of people come into the building
No,
on
yeah,
a regular basis.
totally. And I'm sitting here and I'm talking through a mask and you can, I don't much like it either, but this, I think, is the world that we're in for the moment.
If I didn't talk so much, I'd be wearing mine.
Well,
But
right,
I
that's
talk
what
too
you
much.
should be.
Yeah.
So those are my thoughts.
Okay. What I hear is an amended.
Right. Can I ask a question though, of Martina? Which is, How comfortable are you dealing with a mask mandate in the village? I guess Karen too, you're the people who are gonna have to say, excuse me, we have a mask mandate.
That's fine, it's like a notice on the door.
Okay.
I think it's just a notice on the door.
Okay.
I think judging from the amount of people that came in and just voluntarily were wearing masks tonight, I think.
Well, no, we put it on the agenda.
Oh, you put it on the agenda?
Oh, yeah, no, we
okay.
made a mask mandate to come to the
Well,
meeting.
that worked.
Yeah. They all read it.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, I hear an amendment to my motion, and the amendment to the motion is that we continue village board meetings in person when needed, all right, with the option to go virtual if not needed, and that we include a mask mandate for meetings and all people coming to Village Hall to conduct business. Do I have a second on the amendment?
Second.
Thank you, Lydia. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So carried. Thank you. All right. Trustee Lewitt, tree removal request.
Okay, should I just combine this with the rest of the tree commission?
Yeah, if you want.
Okay.
You know, just so everybody knows, we're on item 12 of 21. Okay, so,
And it's
There we go.
8:45.
It's 8:45. Well, I will do this very quickly. We can do the rest of the tree commission. Basically, a couple weeks back, there's a lovely old oak tree on the corner of Oak and West Chestnut Streets, and it dropped a limb, and it hit a resident's car. And that was, of course, concerning. So at that time, there was a little bit of work done. Dave's Tree Service came out, took a look at it, did a little bit of work. I spoke to Meg. She, chairwoman of the tree commission, she suggested that I call our resident forester at State DEC to see if he would come out and give us an evaluation of the tree. He said, no, I don't do that, but he said, here's the website of the Certified Arborists Association here in the area. I recommend that you take somebody who is a certified arborist and who appears on this list. So I went onto the list. I found there's a local gentleman who could come out, give the tree an evaluation. And basically, the most important part of this evaluation was taking core samples. And long story short, the tree has enough good wood to maintain a canopy, but not enough good wood to be structurally sound in the long run. And his recommendation is that it should be removed as a potential hazard. The tree commission took a look at the work. They agree that we've been talking throughout the day. So the tree commission has also agreed that this tree, given the report that we received, has to come down. It's a beautiful tree. It's a shame. It may have been a tree that Oak Street was named for, but at this point, given its location and what we've learned about its structure, we have to take it down. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to make a motion that the board approves the removal. This is a big enough job that we're going to put it out for bid. We're going to solicit with local tree removal companies, so we'll have to get a bid on this. It's a big job. The tree is ours because it's in the road. It's a very odd intersection. The tree is actually paved around. It's sitting in the road. Actually, it's paved right up to its trunk. Yes, which is another, let's put it this way, not a recommended practice.
it is literally in the road.
It is literally, yeah, it's literally.
You don't know it, but you drive around it.
Yeah, you drive around it.
I think I remember it.
So I'd like to make a motion that we agree to remove the tree and then we go out to bid for a removal company.
Second, do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Lydia. Comments?
Yeah, I think given sort of the size and status of the tree, I think it's important that we notify everyone who lives on Oak Street that this is going to be happening before it happens.
Good suggestion.
Because the last thing I want to do is have a whole bunch of people super surprised by a beloved tree that suddenly disappears. So I think we need to do a little bit of public outreach on this. And so I don't know if we need to amend the motion or if we can just do that while we're getting bids.
can just do that.
I think we can do that.
Yeah,
Create a
But,
sign and put it out or something.
yeah, maybe like a flyer that we can stick through people's.
You know, we have an
mailboxes.
electronic billboard we could put up.
And we do. Maybe a
But
flyer that we put in
also,
people's
I mean,
mailboxes.
if we know people that live on that street, we should reach out to them.
Yeah, sort of spread the word. But, you know, beloved trees like this.
We haven't voted yet.
No, I know, but I know, I'm sitting here and
Yeah,
I'm
you're
like, is there a way
swaying
to
my
like break up the concrete and like give it some space and then put in some, you know?
So these are, I received the report and I had this discussion with the arborist. And basically, that is unlikely to relieve the problem. The problem is that the tree is basically rotting from the inside out. And it's the wall of the tree
That's holding it together.
that holds together. And you need a wall of, I think about 14 inches, he said, for a tree, which is a big tree that size, have a solid wall. And parts of it are down to 6 inches. So it's not gonna, it's really a structural issue, and it's
It
a
will
little.
support the canopy, though.
It will,
just
will
to
support
be
the,
clear.
well, just to say, so what you have is, there's enough circulation through that wood to support the canopy. So the tree actually looks
Fabulous.
fabulous, but the problem is that the trunk itself has rotted.
Do we have an estimate of how old the tree is?
200 years old. How's that?
Yeah.
And that's from a reliable source.
Oh,
Yes.
oh.
And it is one of the trees, one of the last remaining, it is the last remaining oak tree on Oak Street that we have not planted. We have planted other oaks on Oak Street to help preserve that
Yeah.
thing, but this is an original, just so you know.
Someone should take a nice portrait of it, maybe, you know, take a nice photo of it.
Charleston has the living tree, so maybe we could model it, how about after the living tree in Charleston? You know, but anyways, yeah, so we're getting sidebarred here.
Right, and I think speak for the tree commission, it is with a heavy heart that they make this recommendation.
Yeah, totally.
But I think for public safety, we have no choice.
Yeah, I agree. Unfortunately, I would do everything I could to save that tree if we could. All right, it is a remarkable tree. You just got to look at it and see it's remarkable. And then the owner is right here. It provides plenty of shade, you know. I mean, it is shade for your home. It is character. It is all of those things. But living underneath it is a problem. I understand. So.
And also for pedestrians, by the way, and for traffic, because the limb that fell of its own weight, with no rain and no wind.
Oh, wow.
Fully leaf, it just broke off and
That happens, but that can happen with any tree at times, so, yeah. But anyways, I'd like to call for a vote, to keep things moving here. We have a motion and a second. All in favor of going out for bid to remove the last remaining 200-year old oak tree on Oak Street, please say aye.
All in favor of preventing a public hazard.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay.
Turn the twist.
Sorry, we're not trying to make light of the situation, Dorothea. Dorothea, we take our trees seriously. But thank you for your time and your patience while working with us.
Can I just, for counterpoint, I'm sorry, can I do one thing? So the tree commission, we received some paperwork to get a grant from the New York State Forestry something. And basically they're willing to, it's a competitive grant, but it's $1,000 to plant a large specimen tree or two.
Oh.
So we received, I went out with Meg.
Oak Street.
No, not on Oak Tree, we're not gonna put an Oak Tree. Went out with Meg and some other folks, we took a look. We thought placing an American holly, actually a male and a female, in Legion Park, basically towards Route 9, in two spots. One would basically block the view of the road, help block the view of the road, and the other one would help block the view of the road from the little decrepit picnic table. We have a male and a female of the species, and that way you get berries. So this is a beautiful evergreen tree. It's the holly that you know.
Yep.
It has berries, so it's a good, provides shelter and food for birds. We are also at the northern end of its current range, but among the tree arborist community, people are planting things at the northern end.
Yeah, I was
because-
gonna ask, I thought that was true.
Yes,
yeah.
because-
So they're so confident
Well,
that
there's
they're.
also climate change. so
Yeah,
we're
Well, that's
warmer.
right. So
Yeah.
basically, right now,
Trees are
the
migrating.
scuttlebutt in the arborist world is you have to plant for the future, and the future is gonna be warmer.
Yeah.
Is that the only place? That's the only suggestion of place?
Well, we only have $1,000.
No, I mean, we have $1,000, but is there, are there any other place that was considered in the village to?
We poked about and we thought we could, that seemed like the best one and the best use for that specimen tree to get it in there.
Yeah, 'cause
Also access, this is a big enough tree, we can't plant it ourselves, they're gonna come in with highway department's set up the dig, it's gonna get dropped off, it has a big root ball. It's a to-do, so putting it in this spot is a good spot.
Because I do have a suggestion, and I bring it up purposely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but we have across the street, our municipal park, the Doughboy. We have some trees on either end of it that are, I think they're like crabapple trees, that are in dire shape.
Those aren't specimen trees.
Yeah, but can't we put these there and replace what's there? And and beautify what we have across the street?
Well, I think you're beautifying the park over there too. And it's easy, those trees we can get bare root. This is for something that you don't normally buy.
I know.
This is for a tree you wouldn't normally buy.
Yeah, I know, but plant it there. That was all.
That's good, no, I don't think we're good over there.
Can we decide on that later?
Yeah,
Sorry.
So I just wanted to know what's going on.
all right. Well, he wants to vote to approve this, right? You want to move forward?
We're voting on the holly trees too?
Yeah, that's what he wants to do.
Yeah, okay.
No, can we table that for the moment?
Sure.
I agree, putting a specimen tree in the back of a park that people rarely use.
It's not in the back, it's in the front.
Well, okay.
And the idea is that we're trying to make the park more user-friendly.
I like it.
Make the park more user-friendly.
All right, so we want to take time to study this. How's that?
Really?
Yeah.
Come on.
Not at 9 o'clock on, when we have.
I would say that as a tree commission, we took a look through, this seemed like the best use of the funds for this
Yeah, I would
location.
defer to that's what they're there, you know.
That's what the tree commission's for.
Yeah, I find that persuasive.
And if you want to change, you want to do the trees up there, we can do the trees up there too.
Right.
But this is.
How do we do that? We only have $1,000. I'm sorry.
We can take it off fund, that we can do on our regular tree budget. Those crab apples are cheap. You want a large.
No, I
specimen
don't want
tree.
crab apples. I don't want those trees.
Okay, well, we don't know what you want. We want a holly over there.
Let's just vote on it.
All right, let's move on.
No, let's
All
move
in
on.
favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Aye.
Nay.
No.
Nay. I'm
There
opposed.
you go.
Did you vote for it? Did Vanessa vote?
No.
Oh,
Wait, what
I'm
are we
taking-
even voting on?
he's voting to plant the tree, 2 holly trees down at Legion Park.
The hollies.
Oh, okay.
All right, we'll do it over again. All in favor of planting,
Wait, we need a
The
motion.
the motion is to proceed with the grant to plant 2 holly trees at Legion Park. You're welcome.
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye.
Nay.
So,
Tree hitter.
I love trees.
yeah, no, tree. Nothing personal against the tree. Okay, moving on. We're getting punchy at 9 o'clock already.
Yeah.
We've been at it for 3 hours. Vacation buyout request for employee number 6. Employee number 6 is asking for 40 hours. This has been approved through our budget process. And so I'd like to make a motion to approve employee 6 for 40 hours of vacation buyout.
Second.
Second by Vanessa. Thank you, Vanessa. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Well, I was going to do the tree commission when I get to tree commission.
All right, we have a special request for music on Market Street. This is from the Rhinebeck Area Chamber of Commerce, submitted for live music in Village, a 3-piece ensemble with vocals for community members and tourists to enjoy. This is consistent with what they've been doing all along. It's Saturday on 10/23/21, starting at 12:15. Well, it's set up at 12:15, and it would run from 1 to 3, and it'd be entrance to the Rhinebeck Bank Plaza. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lydia. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Trustee Lewitt, I didn't see your lips move or your hand raised. Aye, okay. All right, minutes approval. I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes from 8:10:21 and 8:24:21. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Vanessa. Any discussion? All in favor of...
8:21, 8:20, you got my corrections, right, Martina?
I think I wasn't here for the 24th, but
And you can abstain, right?
I'll abstain from that one.
Yep, right. All right, all in favor, well, I'll separate them out for you then. All in favor of approving the minutes for August 10th, 21. Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? You were abstained?
Yeah, because I wasn't here for 21, pretty sure. I was,
Tenth.
okay, I was here.
The 10th.
I think you said 10 and 21.
No, I broke them out. Pay attention.
I was.
10
I
and
know, I
20.
said 10 and 21.
No, I said the 10th on 8,
August 10th,
10, 21.
10, I, 21 abstain.
All right. All right. I make a motion to approve the minutes from August 24th, 2021. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Lydia. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye.
Abstain.
Opposed? And this time we'll do an abstention. You abstained, right?
Yeah,
Right. Very good.
I can't remember if I was here or not, I probably was.
All right.
No, there was one you weren't.
Now for the really good part of the meeting, treasurer's report. We have some business to conduct here.
Okay, I'll try and make this as quick as I can. I won't read off all the balances, however, I will let you know that the American Rescue Plan funds are in the general fund, but I created a subcategory so we can track them and you can see what's spent out of there, the $30,000. Vouchers presented for payment. In the general fund, total $213,279.10. This is high this month because 2 quarters of the workers' comp has come out of that, as well as the paving for the CHIPS project. I don't think we got the blacktop, we just got the bill for it to be done. And the police vehicle, which I'll get to. The general fund, from the fund balance, as approved last time, is for Central Hudson, $88,478.58. In the water fund, vouchers total $36,195. In the sewer fund, $33,501.99. We have one Delaware bill for the capital projects for the water system upgrade, $4,060. Operating statement is provided for the revenue and expenditures through September 14th, 2021. Justice Court, the Justice Court audit is complete and is distributed, I believe.
Yes, I'd like to, let me accept here, and I'd like to make a resolution to accept the Village of Rhinebeck, New York Justice Court's financial statements and independent auditor's report for year ending May 31st, 2021. It is our obligation, we don't have to review, but we have to accept the report for these, and they will be available in the clerk's office for your review.
Okay.
Okay? I'd like to make a motion to accept, that was a motion to accept, do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor of accepting the resolution to accept the audit, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, thank you.
Okay, water and wastewater billings and adjustments have been signed up by trustee Nudiker and are presented for authorization.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the changes as presented.
Second.
Thank you, trustee Lewis. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Okay, the 2021 Chevy Tahoe Police Command vehicle, which was approved back in the budget. I received 3 quotes for 5-year municipal lease from Real Lease 3.20, Community Leasing 2.99, and Government Capital 2.84. The vehicle is an on-state bid. I asked for a resolution to accept the lowest rate to fund the vehicle with lights, camera, and an AED for $70,459.
Second. or a motion, so moved, I guess. So moved.
Any discussion? Remember, this is the police command car.
They don't get you on the fees with the low rate, do they? How's the fee structure? Do they get you on the fees with the lower rates, or is it just pretty much the same?
They, my release, they just kind of toggle the principal with it so that the amount stays the same.
Karen,
okay.
nobody can hear you. I know you're talking to Rick, but
Sorry.
the public may want to hear that. What is the interest rate again?
The interest rate is 2.84. It's the lowest interest rate.
My car, is it crazy?
So this is a
Crazy low.
lease, this is a, just so everybody knows, this is a lease purchase agreement, correct?
Correct. It's a 5-year
Right.
municipal lease, and what they do is they do the principal and the interest so that we have a consistent payment for the 5 years, and that helps us in our budgeting. We did budget for it.
Okay, all in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Karen, so carried. Let's get this car.
Okay.
Great.
Okay, ambulance. The bid opening for a new ambulance was today, September 14th at 12 o'clock noon. One bid was received from BCI Emergency Vehicle Specialist with 4 options ranging from $234,000 to $243,000. The rescue squad will review the bids and make a recommendation. Budget amendments, I have a couple budget amendments. One is just to allocate the police services salary from the marathon. And the other one is a grant that the police received for $683, and that's just to allocate that to police salaries where that was spent. And then the third one is just to make the transfer from fund balance to the 81 or 5182 for the streetlights.
I make a motion to accept the budget amendments as proposed.
Second.
Thank you, Lydia. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed?
Okay, and just one more item, which has been a very big item for me for the entire month. The New York State annual report, annual update document was filed today at 3 o'clock. Upon acknowledgement from the comptroller's office, I will get copies distributed to.
Thank you so much.
And that's all I care.
Thank you, Karen. Okay, department reports. I'm going to go into the police report and August summary for total number of tickets in the town, 27, total number of incidents in the village, total number of incidents in the town, 27. Total number of incidents in the village, 118. Tickets in the town was 9. Tickets in the village, 35. Number of arrests were 1. No, total number of accidents were 7. Our police department does a lot of other work besides this. They work with our highway department to help them stay safe and direct cars when they're doing leaf and brush pickup. And they also assisted in providing police coverage here at village board meetings when requested. And they were also on duty during the Dutchess County Fair, right, for emergency response and for helping to offset some of the traffic management issues. So, Billy Monk, I thank the police for their effort in doing that. Building planning and zoning.
Building, planning, and zoning chugs along the way successfully at the moment. And they brought in August, $11,573.80. And I will have more there as more evolves later in the year.
Highway.
Very quickly, the Kramer Park was milled and blacktop. Brush pickup is ongoing. The guys are not weeding flower beds. All the big trucks have been inspected for the season. Dante and Joseph have been out mowing the various parks. And the guys have also helped participate in the opening of the large valves down at Crystal Lake We had a lot of rain over the last couple of weeks, and it's potentially flooding. So we try to open the valves prior to the rainfall, lower the level of the lake. We can then close them up. The lake can absorb the water. It goes over the dam. We don't have any flooding. We got it right.
I'd like to thank Trustee Lewitt for his help, especially with me late nights down there and constantly checking on it to help manage this issue. This is an issue we've never done before. I mean, we've done it for the last 4 years now, and it seems to be getting more and more prevalent. So, long-term, the Marist students help give us, thank you, and Vanessa's helping us to work with the Marist students. Kudos to them because they really give us the data to go behind and figure out what we need to do. So, please pass that on to Dr. Feldman.
Okay, I'll mention it.
Yeah. As acting DPW, I'll take that if you don't mind.
It doesn't seem to have been picked up on a regular basis.
Yeah. They try, we've been the same problem with big bellies. They empty the big bellies over the weekends and they get full really fast.
All right, moving on. Thank you. Water Department.
Just general repairs, they replaced the wastegate on the Trident unit. We're landscaping over at the Violet Hill storage tank. Tried to get bids, we got 2 in, and they started today, it looks great. It's really bad in the landscaped bed though, so there's a lot of work to do, but they're about 1/3 of the way done when I checked this afternoon. Couple things. I wanted to let you guys know that when you voted to bury the tank last time, I remembered that there was like a $5,000 bill from Bottini, so I asked Chrissy and I went down the basement and she pulled the invoice and we actually bought that tank. So I have a proposal for a new tank for $5,121, but I left a message with my contact at Bottini. He's on vacation for like 10 days. Do you guys really want to go through with this if we have to just, basically throw the $5,000 away, or? I mean, I'm going to ask him if we can get it refunded or if he can give me. Should I just get back to you on this? Because we had a really good screening option, and it's way cheaper than all this and way easier.
I think we need to continue to pursue the option that we promised to the people.
Okay, but that wasn't a promise to the public. That was a change order, okay? I kind of resent that because I wasn't even able to speak at that meeting. Someone dug, you guys dug up the minutes or something. I wasn't even present at that meeting. I don't know what happened. There were minutes that suggested that we were going to bury the tank. But it was just a change order. Change orders are not a promise to the public.
Well, then
we moved the generator around like 3 times.
Then we need to be better at monitoring what the minutes say in the future, because
well,
the minutes,
that's difficult. I mean,
yes, but we can be held liable for what the minutes say. Like,
well,
you know this. So
no,
like,
the generator moved 3 times. I mean, it's a change order. I mean,
so
we had a change in personnel. I mean, it was just.
So we left it the last time that you were going to at least investigate what it was going to take to bury it. Do we know what that's going to be about?
Yeah, it's $5,121 to.
And we have to buy a new
quote.
tank in order to do it?
That's the new tank.
That includes the tank and includes burying it.
No, then we have he gave me an excavation plan. We're going to do the excavating. So remember I figured about $1,500 to bury it, excavating.
No, I don't remember that.
That was my back of the envelope after talking to Brian.
But the highway department's gonna do the digging. Is that what you're saying?
No, I was,
Oh.
well, that would be, they can.
Or the water department, somebody,
No, we're not going to dig. We're not going to bury it.
I thought you said we're gonna do the digging, so I'm trying to understand how much it's costing.
I mean, Bottini's not going to do the digging.
Bottini's not gonna do the
Right.
digging.
So at the last meeting, I said, I estimated $1,500 to bury the tank. And it's $5,121 to buy it. Now, are we going to eat the $5,340 for the tank that we already bought? That's what I'm trying to explore.
Why don't we table this until we actually have a DPW on board?
or
I don't know that we're gonna, I don't know that we're gonna hire a DPW, or if that person is gonna be devoted to water and wastewater.
So, Brant, why can't we find out if we can get rid of that tank and come back and tell us, well, but
I will, that's what I asked you,
Yeah.
if you wanted me to do that.
Yeah,
I wanna make sure.
I would suggest, let's see
Because
if
this
we,
is turning into a $12,000 situation here.
let's see if we can return the tank and get some credit
Yeah,
for it.
and don't expect a talismanic solution if we get someone to help DPW. They're gonna be completely lost in
and
the
if it all-
wilderness
and if all
for
ends up-
months and months and
So
months.
wait, so that's a separate subject, let's leave that.
Well,
Can we-
she
let's-
brought it
let's
up.
leave that. No, I want to table that, because we don't know the answer, so I want to table that for now, and let's move forward on, you asked to see if you could move forward with seeing if we could return the tank. I think we should.
Yeah.
I think we should see.
I'm
what-
sorry, I'm just, I'm a little testy because I don't want to bury the stupid tank.
I
And you
understand
guys
that.
all want to do it, so
We only wanna
I'm
do it
doing
because-
what I can.
Grant,
I'm
we only-
sorry?
Grant,
What?
we only wanted, Grant, we
I
only
just
want,
said that I'm trying to help everyone out.
we only wanted to do it because that's what we told the public we were doing. That's why.
Gary,
if
we
it-
didn't tell
Brant,
the.
if it ends up being completely unfeasible, then we'll revisit it.
Let me explain what
We
this.
don't know if
what
it's
this
completely
pro-
unfeasible
Can I
yet.
explain the promise to the public?
It doesn't matter what you think we promised the public, what the meeting, what
I
the
just
meeting
don't want you to
minutes
keep
say.
bringing up that terminology. That was
But
the
if the
same
meeting minutes
terminology
say
that
that
a
we promised it-
hostile neighbor used. And Gary recycled the exact phrase.
If the meeting
That's
minutes
so
say that-
odd.
I haven't talked, I haven't spoken to them,
Brant,
so.
if the meeting minutes say that we
I resent
promised
that.
we would look into this, then we need to promise to look into it. That's our job.
I said I
And
would.
if the meeting minutes were wrong.
I said I would.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on.
The
Case
meeting,
closed.
and you won't let me explain what the meeting minutes reflected. I had a proposal, and it just said the tank to be buried. That's all. We ended up not doing that. It's a change order.
Let's move on. You're gonna get us numbers, see if we can turn the tank. Thank you. Okay, waste, and anything from wastewater?
Rough Brothers started today, and it looks great on the greenhouse. They're probably done with 4 walls so far, so. The big issue is gonna be the roof, and, which includes the ridge vent. So they need 3 days of really dry weather, so you can see that that's a challenge, so. And then the doors are custom made, so we're not exactly sure when that's coming in.
Is Time Bond inspecting this as they're doing it? Do we have somebody kind of overseeing?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
Rob Sass, I think is his name, so. And then we agreed on the actuator valve, so. Let's go back to water for just a second. We talked about this extraterritorial district. Rich said that we would need a map and report, so I spoke to Brandy, and she said that that would cost $5,000. So I don't know if you want to hold off on this. You were going to talk to the town board and see if, because really creating the extraterritorial water district comes from them.
Yes. And what we discussed was that we would get this report done first, get the data, and then decide if we were going to move forward.
Okay, well,
And so we made it a 2-phase program, and before we do the extraterritorial and go to the town, that we collect the data, then go to the.
Are you talking about the rate report or the?
What we asked Time Bond to do the analysis, come back.
On a
with-
rate.
On the rate.
But what about the map in the report? This
And
is
we
a
said-
different report.
They don't do the map, that would be, that was not included into that analysis.
No, Brandy does. She just, it's
They
just.
will do it, yes.
It's about $5,000. I just
But
want
it
to know whether.
wasn't in that proposal, is what I'm trying to say.
No, I know. So,
We
but should
need, we need the map.
should I proceed with it, is what I'm
And
saying?
we
Yeah,
said,
we need to do
when we
it.
did it, we said we were gonna hold off on that next step until we get.
On the map in the report?
You get the report done first.
Well, okay,
And
well,
then the
there's 2
map.
reports.
Okay, which report?
The map, there's something called a map and a report. So you do, like, you have findings about the district and the territory and all that, and then you create a map off of it.
Correct. We were gonna hold off on that map
Okay.
and that report.
All right.
And do
So you're
this
doing the
first.
rate analysis right now?
Correct.
Okay.
That's what we had decided at the meeting.
Okay, I wasn't there.
Okay. Environment.
Environmental report, okay. I want to thank Angela Basili and her son Sam, who tabled and got 40 signatures from people over by the Doughboy during the farmer's market. These are pledges to go car-free or car-light on September 22nd. This is all in an effort to try to raise awareness about about the carbon footprint of transportation and the joys of biking and walking. And we continue to promote September 22nd. We'll be hosting a walk or bike to school day on September 22nd. And thanks to Sergeant Dunn for providing some police officers to help with kids crossing safely across the streets. We'll be meeting up at Lions Mini Park that morning of the 22nd. So if you want to volunteer to help out, help keep kids safe crossing the streets on that day, go to climatesmartrhinebeck.org. You can find more info. You can take the pledge. We're hoping to get a lot of people to turn out. The Flex Tech study did kick off, and I think along with my report, there's also the proposal from ME Engineering. So that's moving forward. That is the study for greater efficiency in Village Hall. And let me see. I'm still working on the fleet efficiency policy. I know I said I wanted to bring that up for a vote, but I'm going kind of back to the drawing board after getting a lot of good feedback from everyone, so thank you. Let me see. So there's been some talk about the use of glyphosate and Roundup and other chemical pesticides and herbicides. And we were reported to DEC because of use of some chemicals sprayed, which were organic, but
Not glyphosate.
not glyphosate. But irregardless, I'm creating a policy for not just highway department, but all departments to cease and desist from spraying Roundup, otherwise known as glyphosate. This is something that the state DOT recently passed. They won't be using glyphosate on state properties. So this is a thing.
All the reserve this year.
Right. I would love to ban the use of Roundup on private property, but we don't really have the capacity here in the village to enforce such a law. And so I would like to also draft just a public service announcement about alternative methods recommended by Meg of the Tree Commission for managing weeds. Managing weeds, as you know a lot about, but in a way that's safe for people, that's not potentially carcinogenic, and also better for the environment. So I just submitted the draft to the rest of the board. Maybe we can talk about it at the next meeting.
So, and a wrinkle to that is that issue with the trees of paradise, because we have that over at the
Yes.
how to manage that?
So I did talk to Meg about that, and she says, I'm including a caveat, actually, which I hate including caveats in policies, but you have to counterbalance managing truly invasive species such as the tree of heaven, the ailanthus, versus completely banning the use of glyphosate, which is perhaps one of the only ways to manage an already established tree of heaven that you aren't able to dig up. If you chop it down, it's just going to sprout even more. So Meg recommends very carefully, safely painting on glyphosates, which would actually then penetrate into the tree and prevent its future growth. So the ban is on spraying these chemicals, but potentially we need to have that caveat in place. That said, the use of any of these chemicals by a municipality, by any department in a municipality, is regulated by DEC. So there would need to be either a certification process for our staff, or we would have to contract with a vendor who can show active certification for the application of these types of chemicals. So this will all be written up in a policy that you guys can review.
So I want to make a couple points on behalf of the highway department. So no more spraying, weed whacking only. And that was basically an experiment. And just for a little clarification about the need for a certified person, I had a discussion with the DC guy about this. All of these chemicals are approved for household use by the homeowner. So if you're a homeowner and you go out and you spray your sidewalk for weeds, that's fine. But if I bought the same product at Williams and I asked one of our highway department guys to spray it on the sidewalk in front of Village Hall, he or she is not a homeowner, and that is then not a prohibited use. So it's not that the village, if we go to something, is using some crazy chemical that's not only available in special quantities. It basically has to do with the fact that the substances, the chemicals are registered for homeowner use, and if it's not a homeowner doing it, then somebody else has to apply it. And that's the whole purpose of the registration.
Yeah, so if you go and look at the law on the DEC webpage, it breaks out municipal use versus private use. And so that's what we're dealing with. I just wanted to remind folks that I'll be presenting the NRI preliminary maps and what an NRI is at the September 28th village board meeting. And we'll also be doing an info session for planning and zoning, which the public is welcome to join. That will be a hybrid meeting, I believe, where you could come in person in Village Hall or tune in via our partner's Zoom link. So if you want information about that, again, go to the climatesmartrhinebeck.org website and you can get all the details about the NRI and those meetings. And as you mentioned, our collaboration with Marist is kicking off again. They're now going to be working on installing the tipping bucket on the sensor and hooking that up to gather data. So we're now working with Marist both in the spring and the fall semesters, which is great. And that's it for now.
Okay, we had a late ad from the fire department that I want to put in here real quickly. We had approved that they would give us the recommendations for new members. So the Rhinebeck Fire Department Investigating Committee has interviewed and accepted into active probationary membership the following 2 members pending the return of background checks. And that was Emily Walsheen and William Caruso. So thank you, Emily and William, for wanting to join our fire department. And we're looking forward to their approval and getting certified with everything. So, thank you, Jeff Carter, who submitted that from the village fire department.
Do we need to approve them or?
No, we made a motion that we would take their recommendation years ago, and we don't have to. Because in the essence of time, they moved forward because of classes and everything else, to remind you of that. Okay, committee reports. Do you have anything else on the tree committee?
Yes, I have 2 things on the tree committee. Just we had a removal application from 26 Trinity Place for the removal of 2 Norway maples. The commissioners went out, took a look. They agreed that the trees should be removed. The good news is that the homeowner has agreed to accept 2 new trees to be planted in their stead. So I'd like I'd like to make a motion to accept Tree Commission's recommendation for the removal of 2 trees at 26 Trinity Place.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed?
Okay. The second one is that there is a Cornell Cooperative Extension is running a tree stewardship training program, practical training in public tree management. And I have 2 commissioners who would like to attend. I would like to attend it via Zoom. If we register before Thursday, it's $125 a person. So the commissioners would like to know if the village will reimburse them for their tuition.
Do you have a budget for this?
Yeah. They just wanted to make sure that that was the case. Okay? So do we need a resolution or just submit their okay. Great.
I think you need to sign off on it, their education.
It's Cornell Cooperative.
Oh, okay. Then we can adopt it.
Dutchess County Cornell Cooperative.
You need to sign off and approve it.
Okay, got it. Great.
They need to fill out the form.
Done.
Okay, we had another addition, and this was a late ad that I want to bring on. This is for the Autism Awareness Committee. I want to extend congratulations because they are now a finalist in the Accessible Hospitality award distinction category by the Dutchess County Tourism. And I'm happy to say that we are in great company with Dutchess County Parks and the walkway over the Hudson. So the Village of Rhinebeck is a finalist. We don't know where we will be. If it's the Olympic, we know we're on the podium, but we don't know if we're gold, silver.
When do we find out?
November 4th is the, when the vote is taken, and it's going to be at Locust Grove down in Poughkeepsie. We put this out on the web, announced this already, but I'm happy to say that thank you to the Autism Supportive Committee and their efforts, even through the pandemic, to move us forward toward this being a finalist in the Hospitality Award for Dutchess County Tourism. Okay. Personnel. I'd also now, we have 2 anniversaries. Drum roll. Chief Water Plant Officer Brian Alex, 8 years. Yeah. Congratulations, Brian.
Can't believe it's been a year.
It's great having you here. And another one of our department heads, Highway Supervisor Scott Min, 26 years.
Holy
in the
crap.
Village of Rhinebeck. So,
Started when he was 3.5.
Yeah, exactly.
thank you, Scott. Thank you, Brian. We appreciate your dedication to the Village of Rhinebeck, and we're looking forward to many more years working with you all. Okay. So now I'd like to make a motion to go into executive session to discuss a personnel situation in the village with one of our employees.
Second.
Wait a second. All right. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. All right, I'd like to make a motion to end the executive session.
Second.
On the personnel discussion. Second by Lydia, thank you. I'd like to make a motion to,
We didn't vote on it.
oh, yes, sorry, thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very good. I'd like to make a motion at 9:33 to adjourn our September 14th Village Board meeting.
Second.
Ooh. Thank you all. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Very